And I need to make sure that we are live and we have audio.
And Elaine, they're driving the bus. I'm just kind of here to support.
Support, awesome. No worries. All right. It says, and we have audio.
Yeah. And Elaine, they're driving the.
Okay. All right. Well, let me do this real quick and introduce everybody. Good morning, everyone out there in YouTube land. I am Elaine Abenatha. I'm a digital innovation leader for JCPS for middle school and state agencies, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. We are going to have some awesome shows today, and the beginning show is going to be competency-based education. With Kim Linkhart and Noah Klein and Nancy Shatera. Am I saying that? Chiara? Kiara, excuse me. And then Maddie Shepard is here to support as well. If you have any questions and you need those answered, or you can contribute any things that you would like to share, make sure that you put those questions and comments, and as well as introduce yourself in the chat so we can get to know you and learn from all of you. If you do not have that chat capability, make sure that you are signed in to YouTube, as well as click that subscribe button, because you are going to easily find more uploads and as we chop these episodes apart, and you'll be able to find those in that logarithm that's behind YouTube, and you don't have to search for it. So click that subscribe button, and you can turn notifications off or on if you choose. So without further ado, I'm going to let them take it away. And good morning, guys. How are you?
Great.
Good.
Doing well. Thanks for having us this morning.
You're so welcome.
You may or may not have heard the term competency-based education. So we've been asked to bring some of our learning to you all. You might be wondering how we got here. We know that JCPS is interested in moving in this direction. So we three volunteered to be in a cohort with teachers from Shelby County and JCPS to learn from Southern New Hampshire University and Two Revolutions about the ins and outs of CBE. So without further ado, we will go ahead and introduce ourselves.
I'm Nancy Chiara. I'm a data librarian with Library Media Services.
My name is Noah Klein. I am the academic instructional coach at the Academy at Shawnee.
And I'm Kim Linkhart. I'm the math and science academic instructional coach at Fraser Elementary. And throughout today's presentation, as well as anytime in the future, we're going to be using the hashtag CBE in JCPS. So please feel free now, or if you're watching this 6 months from now, please post your thoughts to that hashtag, and we'll be monitoring that.
Kim, go ahead.
There we go. Okay, great. So to get us started today, we're really, like Noah said, you may have heard the term competency before. It's certainly not a new word, and potentially you've been using it in your classroom rubrics, but what does it really mean? The understanding of this term is critical as we move toward the world of CBE. And as you will see later, we are already headed in that direction. I like to think of the word competency as an analogy. And I'm sorry, I just want to ask about the technical thing. Can everyone see our screen right now? Because I'm seeing the JCPS pop up, and I want to make sure that folks can see the slides that I'm going to be talking about this morning. Great. Excellent. Okay, thank you so much. Okay. So I like to think of the word competency as an analogy to cooking. In fact, just this week, it was really exciting. My daughter became competent in using the toaster. She stated it was really nice to learn the toaster because now I can make waffles for my sister and help out my mom and dad. So it's pretty cool because she owns this skill now and feels proud that she can do it independently. It's the same way for teachers. All teachers want their students to feel this sense of self accomplishment and self ownership in the classroom so that they can generalize and add to this learning over time. So in the real world, we're surrounded by all types of competencies just like these. They're lifelong. We see them every day. So now that my daughter has been experiencing the toaster and met that competency, she'll be able to utilize that for the rest of her life. And she'll also be able to add to those skills or competencies over time when she is ready. So there will be no specific timetable or requirement for her as she moves forward with her cooking skills. Instead, they will build naturally. So I want you to just think for a minute, what kind of real world competencies do you own? Maybe it's riding a bike or driving a car. There are limitless examples of these real world competencies that you experience.
And when we talk about what competency means, we also need to talk about what it means to be successful. Though there are many definitions out there of what it means to be successful, the one that we particularly like is the one that's here on the screen: the favorable or prosperous termination of attempts or endeavors, but more importantly, the accomplishment of one's goals. But it does bring to mind several questions. Who actually determines success? Who sets those goals? Who measures and monitors progress towards those goals? What we know is that in the traditional education system, that is very much teacher driven. In CBE, that becomes much more student driven, where the student takes on more ownership. In education, when we talk about success, we often talk about grades. So we wanted to represent grades here in two different pictures. On the left, you see hopscotch, a game that most of us have played. It is a linear path. It has rules. You have to jump in certain boxes at certain times. There's a defined beginning. There's a defined end. And each box, in this analogy, is a grade, and your participation in that box earns you that grade. What we can see is that students, if they skip a box in the traditional system, aren't playing hopscotch. The traditional education system has hoops and boxes you have to jump through to get a grade. But does that actually represent learning? On the right side is a more student-centered approach. What do we notice? There are multiple paths open at the very beginning. Each one winds and explores a topic differently, yet they all end in the same place. Grades here represent a process and growth along a continuum of skills and dispositions and competencies. It builds a met or not yet mindset. I might start at the beginning, but my path does not have to be linear. But at the end, when I have learned, I get to move on to my next step.
Here's the textbook definition of CBE, and you can see how seamlessly it aligns with our current district policies. This definition is purposely general to allow educators to use their judgment and allow students to tailor their learning to capitalize on their strengths and interests. CBE is really just the next step in the progression to fulfilling the goals outlined in Vision 2020 in action and our 3 pillars. The backpack of success skills is a true starting point for JCPS in moving towards CBE, as these skills articulate what success looks like, not only in each level of schooling, but also before and after graduation. In the CBE world, these are called 21st century skills. PBL identifies them as soft skills. CBE puts all of these pieces under one umbrella, creating a culturally responsive environment that provides opportunities for multiple means of expression and that invites all students to actively take part in their learning is vital. And ultimately, the goal is to take learning out of the context of the schoolhouse and put it into the context of students' lives, which in turn propels students into more engagement with learning. So here are some specific areas that demonstrate ways that we can continue to move from the more traditional model to a competency-based model. Many of these components are already in place. In other cases, it's just looking at things from a slightly different perspective. First, flexibility in this context is the providing an environment where a student moves through the material at their pace rather than the class moving together. We called it in the Army, training to standard, not to time. And if a student finds a particular skill relatively easy to grasp, they can move ahead or help others in the class. If they struggle with the concept, they do not move ahead until they have demonstrated competency in that skill. As so much learning is scaffolded on prior knowledge, it just makes sense to make sure you're competent before you move ahead onto a new skill. Next, increase the levels of student agency by allowing students to demonstrate understanding or competency in a manner that suits them best. We provide our students with our expectations and then coach them through the process of demonstrating their learning or skills. Another area is how we provide support. Feedback and conferencing are essential in order to gauge where a student is in their learning. And instead of only providing individualized help for our lowest and highest performers, we provide support for everyone. Next, help students understand the expected outcome and what the culminating goal is. The class environment is inquiry driven and uses performance as a means to assess. We let students know what the final learning target is and why it's important to learn. Additionally, we need to reflect on our grading practices because competency-based education addresses 21st century skills in addition to academic skills. We can isolate the academic content and evaluate that separately from behavioral or soft skills. 21st century skills are important, and evaluating them separately provides a clearer picture of our learner and allows us to address specific areas of need. We also want to start where they are and provide opportunities for success. And finally, because students are working somewhat independently rather than as a group, using modules that are scaffolded makes the most sense. Absolutely crucial is the classwork needs to speak to the students and resonate with them as individuals. PBL and workshop models are a great fit for this. Mhm. Well,
So
no,
that's actually kind of where we're heading. So, Elaine, if you could monitor the chat and let us know if they pop up and say we didn't answer, that'd be great. Um, so, teachers often look at a table like what was just given and say, oh my goodness, that is one more thing. But what we really want to show is that CBE is not one more thing. And in fact, in many ways, is just the next step forward. So in this table, what we want to show is a crosswalk between traditional instruction, project-based learning, and competency-based education. Let's look first at standards. You'll notice all of them are driven by state or national standards. But what changes is how those standards are given. So for example, planning, we know in traditional instruction, we should have backwards design. In project-based learning, there is backwards design, and then there's a heavy emphasis on student voice and choice. And on competency-based ed, students are given all the materials at the beginning so that they can start at their own place and it is driven at their own pace. It takes the student voice and choice of PBL and takes it the next step. What we know is that the biggest shift is going to happen in grades. Right now, in traditional instruction, grades are given at a teacher's discretion and based on tasks or attendance. In competency-based ed, we have to move to a true met, not yet philosophy with many chances to revise work. So what does this all look like? The short answer is there are many schools and states around the country that are trying this. And here in JCPS, we're taking our first steps. The backpack of success skills was a first step. But to address that question, at Shawnee, where I work, we took the NTI need and we took the CBE idea and implemented first steps. In NTI at Shawnee, students are given up to 3 tasks that they can do for each teacher. However, they are only required to do 1. All 3 tasks are scaffolded so that they are interrelated. So for example, if I'm a student in English and I'm a successful English student, I might be able to jump ahead to the end activity without having to do the rest of the work. If I do so successfully, I get credit for all the work. However, if I'm a math student and I struggle in math, I might take every step to make sure that I'm being successful along the way. In talking to teachers at Shawnee, some of the things that they've realized through this process is that they've had to really rethink and refine clarity around directions and expectations. They've also noticed that this system has supported the teacher as facilitator, and kids have had to become more agentic. But not only have they had to become that way, a lot of them are actually stepping up to the plate. And we've also noticed that flexibility in instruction is key. Every student comes to us at a different place, and we need to be flexible enough to meet them. I really like this graphic to represent CBE, especially during this time of NTI. In football, if I'm a receiver, my goal is to receive the ball from the quarterback and move it up the field. Now, ideally, I could get that Hail Mary pass and score a touchdown. But sometimes I have to move the ball incrementally. So if I'm receiver X, I have up to 9 different options represented here as to how I might support my mission of moving the ball up the field. It doesn't matter when we get to the end. What matters is the actual education along the way and the process as well.
So this is pretty exciting. And just to kind of go back to that chat question about NTI and CBE, if you think about the way the grading system is working right now, it is absolutely the met or not yet philosophy behind the elementary and middle school. And so this is kind of getting us set up for changing our mind shift and moving in that direction. So it's worth noting that the majority of research and in CBE has been done at the high school level, many of the case studies that are out there, but we wanted to give an example in elementary school. So please note that as I'm going to be talking about Fraser Elementary here, this can be applied to middle and high school and has happened more so over time here. CBE has been around for about 20 years. And so this is really the start of the conversation for us in Jefferson County. We are, as Noah and Nancy had said, kind of on our way to this in Jefferson County. And even though we don't have explicitly written competencies, both for academic or 21st century, we can absolutely take steps to move that way. And the backpack of success skills are on that path. So the deal is the district is a pretty amazing district to work for because they give us the agency to research some of this stuff. And that's why we're here to talk about today, to start the conversation so that we can explore this and see how folks might be moving in this direction. So for this exercise, we're going to be talking about choice board number 4 and specifically a math question here, an inquiry task. So needless to say, there are numerous ways to approach preparing students for inquiry tasks such as this one, which was adopted from illustrative mathematics. When viewing this task, consider using the 3 reads protocol from the San Francisco United School District, which I've linked to this presentation. It's a close read of a complex math problem that helps students engage and make meaning of an open-ended problem or task, asking students to consider the situation, the quantities, and asking questions about the situation themselves. If students have experience with these various ways of approaching problems through the 3 reads protocol at the beginning of the year, then it's going to be easier for them to glean the necessary information when they get to a problem like this where they need to do it independently. So even though I realize we're talking about competency-based education, it's worth noting that in the absence of explicitly written competency sets, here in JCPS, we focus on state standards. So for this 5th grade math task, there's a main focus on one standard, which is MBT1, and a cursory or anticipatory focus on the additional standard of MBT2. In math, standards are grouped together in clusters, which in the future could indicate an additional grain level or demonstrator underneath a larger umbrella of the competencies. And in this 5th grade sample, I want you to note that these planning practices that I'm about to share can be applied across any grade, standard, subject, or concept. And many JCPS schools have been working under a standards-based environment for quite some time. And this is certainly a path to competency-based education. So continue to share your experiences with that hashtag CBE and JCPS so we can compare, create a practical comparison between those 2 models. And as you'll see, the real difference is in the student choice of their pathway throughout this process. It's also worth noting in mathematics and certainly in other subject areas that there are overarching standards for practice. These are the ones that are linked to this particular problem and these standards that we're talking about today. And they are a critical part of our current space as we move toward a CBE environment. They're similar to one another in that the grain size is larger and when they're compared to individual standards. And in fact, when many academic competency sets are written across the country, they incorporate or build upon these practices. So it makes me think, how might we as teachers better communicate these practices to students as part of a larger teacher clarity package? Now, we couldn't get into this without thinking about the zone of proximal development, or ZPD, because when you're giving students agency and they're selecting their own path, there will need to be scaffolds built. And so scaffolding, it's really important to recognize that this is an exciting part. Some people may look at a task and think, oh, I don't know if my students are ready for that yet. And that's exactly the point. They aren't ready for it yet because that's how they're going to learn. It's going to be learning through that process. And a Russian social psychologist by the name of Lev Vygotsky theorized that learning occurs as part of this process in lieu of Piaget's theory that dictated that a child's development must precede said learning. So this ZPD theory aligns quite well with CBE and personalized learning in general, because student voice and choice, as well as assessment results, are used to determine the path and the pace of the learning, with the ultimate goal of becoming competent and independent. So these things really align quite well. And I'll be keeping this in mind as I support teachers at Fraser through this thinking. So we're going to get a little more specific here to this sample. And when you're thinking about backwards design, you think about what do the students need to know and be able to do prior to completing the task. So for this specific task, students will need to understand the value of digits, read and write decimals, and understand the power of 10. Now, I recognize that this infographic overly simplifies the process, but it is a necessary first step to reach the levels of required teacher clarity for CBE, or really any form of personalized learning. Some of you may look at this and wonder, how is this any different? And truly, that answer to that question lies in the implementation of the instruction. All of the potential mini lessons, tasks, assessments, they must all be created prior to any instruction in the standards or competencies. And teams of teachers must also agree to a shared understanding of these tasks as they delve into smaller grain sizes within a larger standard or competency. Systems for self-assessment must also be developed to let students have voice in their path, and these processes may look different in elementary school when compared to middle and high school. The most important distinction for true CBE is that students are determining their own paths along a personalized progression with teacher guidance at the elementary level. So they'll be doing a pre-assessment, and that pre-assessment will determine where they start in that path, but you want students to really have an understanding of how that works and why that's important for them. So let's zoom in a little bit here. This particular pathway illustrates what it might look like for students who require more understanding of the power of 10 prior to the final choice board task. So using formative assessments in this environment becomes the norm, not the exception. As mentioned before, students are able to progress at their own pace. And with this student agency in mind, we want to ensure that we provide students with multiple options to demonstrate their learning. Therefore, for a portion of this progression, I've outlined multiple stops for students to demonstrate their chosen path. So these inquiry tasks provide students the opportunity to demonstrate that they are ready to progress to the culminating task, which in this instance is the choice board number 4 activity. Lastly, student feedback is necessary along this path. I don't have it explicitly in this graphic, and so I want you all to think about it. Feedback can't originate solely from the teacher. It must be a shared responsibility and a classroom community goal to support one another as each student progresses. So how might we fit student feedback into this graphic? How do you visualize it? How do you and your collaborative team implement systems to encourage the regular occurrence of student feedback in your classroom? I think it's a really critical piece of CBE, and systems have to be developed. So if you're looking at those red boxes, those represent, of course, the formative task. And so if we move to the next slide, you'll see this is just one way of thinking about it. Teachers really need to have a list of potential inquiry tasks based ahead of the instruction. And then also the room should be left for student conceptualized tasks. In many instances, students know how to demonstrate their learning. And with them in the lead, they could potentially demonstrate it at a deeper level than the teacher even imagined. So once again, front loading all this stuff is very important. And how might you plan and implement for an individualized path for this specific standard? If you're an elementary teacher out there, be thinking about this. This is just a starting point. I think it's really nice in talking about something new to see examples. Now, JCPS is not specifically in a CBE environment. We, of course, have begun with the background success skills as 21st century skill samples. But in elementary schools, there's a lot of really great stuff going on. And specifically at the school I work with, Fraser, I wanted to share this example of 5th grade teacher Stephanie Burrow Carpenter. She's taking students on a journey through concrete, representational, and abstract understanding. And it's pretty neat because she knows that if students could get hung up on tricks such as add a zero or move the decimal point, it would make them over reliant on her as the gatekeeper. So she's really thinking through the CRA model, and I'm not going to go into detail on that right now, but just know that it's an intentional thing that teachers need to consider and potentially communicate, because students really need to understand mathematics at an abstract level in order to be competent in it. And so it really gets me thinking about the type of conversations that we might be having with teachers in this environment. Now, you also may be wondering, this is a lot to think about. How can you set up your system for students to be able to be doing different things all at the same time? And so if you look at the next slide, you'll see the workshop model format. This is something that is at Fraser, we're really committed to. So personalized plans are created and adjusted with students of their own learning. Like, how could you fit that in there? How in the world could a teacher do this? So you have to move toward a workshop model truly. And we're fully committed to this to maximize instructional time. If you'd like to know more about that, please consult the video that's on this slide deck. It was created by Catherine Warren and is a really great way of thinking about intentionally setting up for your classroom instructional framework. Once again, this is just one way. I really wanted to share this awesome start to creating a rigorous framework for us in math at Fraser. All teachers, all certified teachers are involved in this process, and it's just another example of how intentional pre-planning is not only critical, but ultimately needed. We want students to be able to move at a pace that's appropriate for them. It's also really important for teacher clarity and vertical alignment. So be thinking about, how does your school have these big conversations? And also at Fraser, we'll be having the conversation, how do we take this model and shift it to more inquiry based? How do we insert inquiry tasks into it? It's a really exciting time for us at Fraser, and I'm really glad I'm here to be able to share that. With that in mind, I'm going to end my portion here thinking about the collaboration that's required for any of these environments, CBE, as well as standards-based grading. It requires front loading. And one quote from a teacher states, "This collaborative planning approach has helped me give everyone a head start for next year so that when the year begins, an element of uncertainty has been removed." What's nice is that it doesn't matter what grade level you'll teach, these resources will be ready for you. So it's that idea of collective teacher efficacy and everybody working together. And it really increases the confidence and reduces the anxiety for teachers. Another teacher at my school, Miss Kayla Condor, stated that it's amazing to see how, especially during this time of virtual interaction, teachers rise to the challenge of creating, redoing, creating again, and finalizing a curriculum that will meet our students' needs. And it's all through this collaboration. So keeping these things in mind as you think about progressing your curriculum or your instructional practices more toward a CBE environment.
So at the end of the day, there is a lot here that people can look at and say, we can't do that, it's too much. And yes, there are significant roadblocks. And right now, the system is not designed to accommodate some of the concepts that are crucial to authentic implementation of CBE. But what we know is that CBE is possible. When we point to a question that could be a roadblock and somebody says, can we? And if we say yes, then we'll be able to do it. We believe that every roadblock in this case is an opportunity. So let's continue that conversation using that hashtag CBE and JCPS. So with that, we want to give a shout out to some of our thought partners. Again, we had a lot of help from teachers at Fraser Elementary. Thank you to Maddie Shepard from Deeper Learning, and then the teachers at the Academy at Shawnee as well. And I'm going to turn this over to Nancy to finish us out.
So yeah, we've covered a lot of ground today. And if you want to look more closely into CBE, this last slide has a lot of links on it from the Aurora Institute. And feel free to contact any of us and as well. And then our bit.ly is on the Digital Learning Channel schedule so that you can it has all these things are linked. So thank you. And I think we're finished.
Appreciate everybody watching today.
Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. We really appreciate starting this conversation.
Well, thank you guys. That was very informative. We had lots of people in the chat that were saying thank you for this, as well as it was informative for them and great sessions. And I want to give a shout out to Wendy Smith. She says, I hadn't planned on attending this session and I just got on it early for the next one, so I'm thankful that I did. It was informative and helpful. So we appreciate you watching live with us, and it's 9:30. We have two more that are going to be joining us. We have Decluttering Your Digital Life, Organized Drive Using Google Keep and Calendar to Stay on Top of Things, with Kate Mastrocola. I always feel like I'm going to mess that up, Kate. And Kyle Chandler, my partner, who's a digital innovation leader as well. And good morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Kate, did I mess your name up?
Yeah, but it's okay. I'm used to it.
Oh, say it for me. I need to get it right.
Mastrocola.
Mastrocola. Okay, I will work on that. I promise. That'll be some homework for me. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys take it away. I can share your screen or and go through the slides. You would just need to let me know next, or you can do that as well. And good morning, Kyle. I didn't even say hi to you. Oh, you're muted.
Whoops, I said good morning again.
Good morning. Okay. Yes, because we saw each other earlier. All right, Kate, do you want to share your screen? Or do you want
Yeah, I'm going to jump around a little bit.
Okay.
So I think I've got this.
So while Kate is getting her screen queued up, this says that she is the school technology coordinator at Mazik Middle School. I'm Kyle Chandler, digital innovation leader for middle schools. I partner with Elaine and support the STCs in that zone. And so, yeah, it was kind of a no-brainer. Our leader, Heather Worrell, asked us to reach out to some folks to join us. And so I immediately thought of Kate, and she had some great resources she shared with her staff recently. And she said, hey, how about this? So next thing you know, here we are. So, Kate, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. I am trying to find the closed caption part, and it's escaping me now where that is.
It's okay. Just go to your slide deck. There you
Okay.
go. And then when you click Present,
Ah,
yep, it'll be there at the bottom. You just click Close CC. You just click it like a button, and then you can put it wherever position. Perfect. Yeah, we like large. And then
I was looking for that bar, and I forgot that I had to go into my slides first.
that's okay.
So,
You'll need to turn it on too, because you just changed the settings. There you go. Yep, like a button. Just click the actual CC.
oh, okay.
Yep, you got it.
Gotcha. All right. Is it? Yes, it's working. So, yeah, like everybody said, my name's Kate, and I'm from Mazik, and I'm a bit of a organizational nut. When I graduated high school, my mother gave me a label maker, and that was just, it was all downhill from there.
As a gateway organizational tool, huh?
It is. And now that we're in NTI and like we're super digital, it's even worse because instead of like my desk piling up with stuff, now it's my computer. So when you all reached out as to, what session to have, this was immediately what I thought of because if I like cleaning and I'm struggling, I can't imagine people who don't like cleaning. So that's kind of the impetus for this.
Absolutely. And I'm watching the chat as well. And I am just as eager to learn as the rest of you from this by Kate, because my Google Drive is embarrassingly a mess. So please.
Well, and even if you have all, everything together, it's like laundry. You may be done one day of the week, but then it all starts over again because, it's laundry. You always have stuff to do. And just the nature of the beast with our job, we are always creating documents and sharing things and coming up with new ideas. So it's not something you're ever truly finished doing, but hopefully by the end of this, you have a system that you can try and apply, and hopefully it works for you. So I've thrown up our contact information on here. I go by Kate, but my name is really actually long. So if you're ever needing to email me, it is Catherine. Don't let that throw you off. But I have my Twitter handle up here and Kyle's Twitter up here. So, follow us. It's entertaining, or don't. It's up to you. So the first thing I really want to think about is Google Drive, because that's where all of our stuff lives, or hopefully all of our stuff lives. If you've had a tip computer for forever and you've not made the jump to Google Drive, that's kind of a double-edged sword because You can start your Google Drive from scratch, however you want to organize it, or you still eventually have to go through your stuff at some point. But this is a screenshot of my Google Drive from last year at the end of the year. I usually have a spring cleaning. I purge my classroom of old stuff, and then I go through my Google Drive and kind of fix things. So you can see that at the top, I have a bunch of different folders, but then I have all these documents that are a hot mess. So this is the disclaimer of, I'm still working on this too. The first thing you want to think about is how you'd want to sort your Google Drive, or how you want to view it rather. You can view it in grid view, which is what's on the left, or you can view it in list view, which is on the right. I like list view because my brain likes that better, but it's up to you. And the way you change that is there's a button in the top right, and you can just click between the two, and it either looks like a list or it looks like a grid.
And I personally got used to using the list, I think because, and I like how you've got the color, and I know you're going to talk about that later, but I like the list because you see how it says last modified. That got to be my best friend from Windows, so I just carried it over to Google. But I love the color coding you've got going on there too. That's pretty neat.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. But I agree, the last modified is helpful. And then when you're in, like when you have folders from other people, you can see if it's a folder you created or the ownership part, which is helpful. So my first suggestion is to organize by color because it's a very visual thing. So this example, the system is listed at the bottom. So green folders are things that are current. Orange folders are things that I would use over the summer. Light blue folders are non-school things, but like stuff that it doesn't really matter if it's in my Google Drive. Red are folders that I have declared as archived, and then I had pink as like secondary resources. And this is just a suggestion. You could pick your colors the way that, makes sense to you. But in my head, I was kind of thinking like a stoplight, like green means go. Oh, this is current. Red, stop. I may not need this. And then everything in the middle is kind of like a continuum. When I say archiving, it's not set to like automatically archive. It just means in my head, I know that I don't really need this so much. So it's not going to be a main folder in my drive that I have to hunt through when I'm looking for current resources. Instead, I have one archived folder, and then I utilize subfolders to put things in there. So yellow were things that were kind of old, I'm probably not going to use. Or I'm sorry, yellow are things that I recently archived, and red were things that were old that I probably won't use. Before I took the STC position, I taught language arts for 7 years, and I kept bouncing around between grades, and sometimes I would just teach writing, or sometimes I would teach all of language arts. So I amassed all these different resources, and I don't want to get rid of any of them, but I may not want to see them all of the time. So by having one big archive folder and then subfolders allows you to keep it, but not totally get rid of it, but not see it all the time.
Also a great idea, Kate. I had business classes that I taught every year, and I would do a similar thing in Windows. So again, to translate all this over into Google was huge because that's our main platform now. But I'd have by like year completed or what have you, so that you don't want to get rid of stuff necessarily, especially with unlimited storage in Google Drive. But at the same time, you don't want it in your face all the time either. So great tip.
Yeah, I mean, most teachers, I would say, are kind of hoarders. We don't like to get rid of things because you may need that one specific resource for that one specific scenario. So yes, I love our Google Drive having unlimited storage because I'm like, I can keep everything.
Yes.
And these folders are easy to drag and drop and move once they're in your drive. So like these folders were green at one point, and I've just moved them over where I needed them to go, and then I've changed the color. And we'll get to all that. But it's not like once you have the folder, it's not hard to manipulate things. Another way you can go about color is that you can also add emojis to your folders. This was a game changer. I learned this last summer, and it just blew my mind because you can still have your color system, but then you can, make it kind of pretty. And the way that you add emojis, you can either do it from your phone, which is the first way that I learned because your phone has your emoji keyboard, or you can actually use a website, just a generic emoji website, to pull emojis and copy and paste them in. And that's linked later on in the presentation. But like my archive folders, it's a filing cabinet. My STLP folder, it's a laptop. I tried to make it like logical. The other way that you can sort your drive is by standard. And this is an example of organizing by standard. I went through and I, labeled everything. And this system is at least 3 years old, like this example, because it was when I taught 6th grade the first time. And that's where the downfall of this is. If you change grades or contents, you kind of have to start over and it can be a little frustrating. Or if your standards totally change, it could also be frustrating. So if standards works for you, and that works for your brain and you are pretty stable in your position, go for it, because it can be really helpful when you're thinking about lesson planning and have I met that standard? Have we covered everything? Are all my resources grouped? That part's really, really cool. But if you're pretty transient as a staff member, it could get real frustrating real quick. So I only tried that for 1 year. That was my summer project, setting everything up. So, and that's also before I started color coding. So that's why you'll see that these are all gray. So just real quick, how to create folders in case, you had a brain fart or you never knew how to do this. You'd go to the in your drive. When you're in there, you'd start in the waffle, obviously, and then you'd go to your drive, and there's a plus button, new, and that's where you get these folder options. So you start with a folder, and then once you have your folder and you've named it, when you right click on folders, that's how you change the color. So this screenshot just shows you that I right clicked on my first folder that's listed and scrolled down to change color, which is about halfway through. And then it gave me all those options. So even if you create a folder by mistake and you need to go through and edit things, it's really not a big deal because Google's pretty flexible and you can, tweak things. Once you've right clicked on a folder, you can also rename it. And then this is the slide where I've linked an emoji keyboard, which really all I did was Google emojis, and it was like the first link. It's not super stressful. And there's not like one go-to resource I used for this. Like I said, I also did it on my phone because I'm a weirdo and I have Google Drive on my phone and sometimes like to work from my phone. It's just, whatever works for you.
Same. It's right there all the time. It makes sense. I hear you.
Such a temptation. Or like if you're at a PD and you're like, oh, I like this. I'm going to put this in my drive. Because, whatever works.
And Kate, I find that when you have it on your phone, it's super easy to share with somebody or look up something. So you're not a weirdo. I don't think so. One bit. No.
Oh, thank you. Sometimes I need, validation that I'm not that neurotic. But yes, I would say it's easier to add the emojis from your phone because your keyboard's probably already there because, most of us text with emojis now. Most of us.
Guilty.
Even my grandmother, she's 89. I didn't know she texted until recently, and she's got emojis down. So
it's like, it's just only emojis, like no words from grandma, just emojis.
Oh no, she also didn't too. That blew my mind. It's like, okay. I digress. So that's kind of just the basics of Drive, or at least your Drive. Some additional things to think about when you're getting started. I would go back and tackle all of your unnamed files. If you're someone who's created Google Docs and you just open them and you've never named them, when you go through your Drive, you'll see a list of all these untitled documents at the bottom. So you want to kind of assess what you have, make sure things are named. I also like to date things just so I know when I'm going back. And I usually go with the decimal point system. So 5 period 14 period 20. That way I can sort the dates easier. If you put the slashes in there, sometimes you may add a space or forget exactly how you did it. But that's been my new thing, has been to date everything. Um, keep your names consistent so you can find stuff. If you change your mind between like for STLP, I usually start things with STLP and then what it is versus, choice board and then STLP. Because if you're sorting things by name, it gets a little more confusing. So it's like a super advanced trick if you want to be super consistent with naming.
Yeah, so like just a standardized naming convention, almost like you see like sometimes they set up like labs and stuff in schools, so it's easy to know. Yeah, that's awesome.
Try and use folders and subfolders. That way you don't have everything in front of you. I think that's how we get overwhelmed. And then, definitely go through and archive things. This is about the time of year where I go through and I kind of assess where my drive is, delete things I don't want, or move things to folders that maybe never got moved to a folder, and then archiving folders that may need to be archived of stuff you just don't use anymore. The biggest thing I can tell you though is do not try and do your entire drive all at once. You will get frustrated and you will do what my Bitmoji did there. And, if that's your tip computer, no one's going to be happy with you if you break that. But set a timer and try it for 5 minutes and chunk it. Or pick a show on Netflix that you like that doesn't require too much focus, so that you don't miss anything, but just sit there and absentmindedly kind of, sort things or rename things or figure out, what's going on. The other thing I want to point out is that your drive versus your shared drive looks a little bit different. There are some differences. And it hurts my soul, and maybe someone knows more than I do, but right now you can't color code shared drives, and it makes me sad.
But you can add emojis and you can number things to give some order and some structure. So the screenshot I have on the right is of my academic team folder, because I coach quick recall, nerd sport, go team. I say that lovingly. But we have a lot of resources that we accumulate and my kids get added, and it's a shared drive. So numbering things helps. You can add emojis to it. The thing about shared drives is if it's your school drive, your permissions may be different. So you want to look at what power you have first before you get in your head, oh, I'm going to sort it this way. Because if it's a drive that you don't have as much managerial rights with, you can't do as much.
And Kate, I'll let you know that one thing I've found with shared drives, it used to be called, was it team drives or something? But is that if you're going to use those advanced features like Formule or Form Ranger or AutoCAD and those type of things, you can't necessarily have a document inside a shared drive. So you have to be careful about what you're thinking of putting in there and your eventual use of those documents.
Oh, for sure. And just an access standpoint, because sometimes you don't want
everyone having free reign.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother can of worms. But if you think, if you're in a PLC and you're oh yeah, I'm going to go through and sort all this because I'm super motivated, talk to your PLC mates and think through some things before you completely change everything. Just to throw that out there.
Yeah, good point.
So that's the basics of kind of Google Drive, and my, plan of attack for you would be, chunk it, think about either color, think about topic, think about
if you'd want to go by standards, that kind of thing. So if I want to go now and just do real time out of my presentation, am I still sharing my screen?
You sure are. Yep.
Okay. So the other cool thing I wanted to talk about was Google Keep, which is basically digital sticky notes, and it's the best thing ever if you've never played with this. So you all can see this, right?
Yes, and yay, I'm so glad you're sharing this, which it looks like it's got a little bit of a new look over there on the left with the rounded tabs, so I'm excited to see this.
I will say I probably don't know everything about Keep, but what I do use for it, oh my gosh, it's my favorite. Because Google Keep you can have on your phone and you can have on your computer. And if you're someone who hops around between devices, this is the best. So Google Keep, it's in your waffle. When you scroll down, you'll see it. It's got like a little light bulb looking thing. And I think it looks like a sticky note. And that's the best way that I equate it in my head. So if you're someone who like stickies all over your desk or, I always get annoyed when stickies fall down because you buy the cheap kind. It's not as good. But then you never lose these.
But they always stick.
Yes.
Too. And you always have the color that you want. So this is not as neurotically organized as my drive. I sort of have a system for color, but I kind of don't. I like to keep my super important sticky notes pinned, and then everything else underneath becomes chronological. So I have others down here, and I have pinned up at the top. And I use my Keep for grocery lists. I use my Keep for my furnace filter because I can never remember what my furnace filter is.
Right.
I keep my dog's microchip information in here because if he gets out, I'm not going to want to waste time looking for it. But man, I know I have Google Keep on my phone and I'll find it.
Now, do you have you used the collaborative piece of Keep?
Oh yes. It's funny you should mention that. Or to some degree, like I share. I'm the SPDM secretary for my building. So like we have a special called meeting in the morning, and it's like one of those 2-minute suckers. I may not necessarily bring my computer, but I'll have my phone, and I'll take minutes on there really quick, and then I will share that note with my principal and whomever else is relevant for the short term before making sure the minutes are official. So like we'll use this for quick backpack meetings when we're talking about defenses, and I can share stuff. And it's kind of cool because if you click top up here to create a note, you can add a title. Simple note. And then you put your actual note here. This is a note. And you've got some options. You can have it remind you. This is where you can add other people. They'll get invited to it. And then their little face shows up at the bottom.
Sorry about that.
No, it's great. You can change the color. You can add images. I use this a lot when I'm going back and forth between devices, and like if I take a screenshot and I want to share it through email or whatever I want to do with it, it's great because you can add the image to your note and then it's there. You can add checkboxes, so like for grocery lists, this is what I use, or like for my to-do lists, I have a running to-do list and you can just check it off when you're done.
Yeah, so that's actually, you are using the collaborative piece for a far more productive purpose than me, but for, yes, grocery lists, that's awesome. And then we go to the grocery together and divide and conquer, because the list is live, so it removes things as you're grabbing it. So yeah, I like that.
Hey, Kate, did you know about shoppinglist.google.com?
Oh, are you going to turn me on to something that's going to be even more tempting?
I am. If you have a Google Home, you can say, hey, Google, put what and what on my shopping list, and then it will show up automatically, so you don't have to actually go and do it yourself, and you can share that with multiple people too.
Nice.
My husband would probably he'd judge me even more.
Judge me. By the way, Kate, you're getting much encouragement from the chat to let your personality shine through. They love you, and you're getting a lot of love from Mazik in there as well. So.
Oh, good. I told them all to give a shout out. Just to prove they all showed up.
They did. They showed up. So.
That's the weird part about this. It's like talking to the void because you can't see what all's going on.
Kate, one more thing. I have seen where teachers will put, because you just put that image at the top, they will put a Monday, like a Monday actual image that's cute, like says Monday, and then they'll put a Tuesday, and the rest of the weekend they'll pin those at the top, and they'll make like lists and share those with their students just in case they want to do like a to-do list or whatnot, which is really neat as well. And you do have a max of 100 people to share a list, so I've noticed that too.
They must be elementary teachers. They're the cute ones.
Yes.
I try, but no, that's super smart. I like that idea. Like I said when I prefaced with this, I'm not the end all be all. I just this is one way like I think is helpful just from trying to stay
Absolutely.
organized.
Absolutely.
And something I did while we were talking is I pinned this note so it showed up at the top, and it's just like on a bulletin board with the pin. That's what I clicked, and I can unpin it and it'll send it back down to my others where it's still chronologically sorted but not as important. If I pin it, it goes up there and it's something super focused and present, but I can still drag and rearrange, so like I still have my to-do list right there. And because of our job being kind of techie and like constantly finding new resources, that's where a lot of my Google Keep notes go. I'm like, oh, I want to try this, or oh, I want to remember this video, but I don't want to like put it in a Google Doc or pin it and have a bajillion tabs open.
Kate, don't you love how when you go to your Google Drive, jump over to that tab that says that's your Google Drive, show everybody where the shortcut is for it on the right. Oh, it's not there. I guess go to that slide. Never mind.
Something. There's a shortcut.
Yes, there's a shortcut. So go to I don't want you to go to that other. Open up Docs or a new doc or something. Just real quick, a new doc. Yep.
Sure.
Yeah. So over there on the right, once you open that new doc, is going to be your shortcut for this for your Keep. And one of the things, you'll have to open a new doc.
It's always slower when presenting.
It's okay. Sorry, I just was excited and I thought I'll show her this if she doesn't know it. But well, it's not showing up for you. Over on the right, there generally is a little just a little spot that shows the Google Keep. And then I've had teachers show me that if they there it is.
I had to open my side panel. Okay.
Yeah. And if they have like constant regular comments that they need to do, they'll put them in a Google Keep and then they can copy and paste quickly. Like, you need to see this video because you've missed this key concept. How cool is that?
This is a game changer.
Yes. And then see, look, you have right there your tasks and also a quick spot to get to your Google Calendar. So sorry, I had to share that with you.
I heard Kate gasp for air when she saw that, so that was awesome.
I like learning new things, and this is great. And that's the best part about Google. Like, I love that we all kind of share where we're at and what we know, and like everybody learns something. So that's the best part. I think I have like 60 seconds for Google Calendar. Quick lightning plug: if you've never gone to Google Calendar before, it's awesome because it's in the waffle. Everything's in the waffle. I'm operating under the assumption that we can find that. But you'll have your Google Classrooms you can link between. You have your calendar. You can add other people's. I'm kind of the keeper of our defense calendar, so that's on here. And right now you can overlay, like I had my calendar overlaid, but if I just have our defenses in, I can do that. And it's just a matter of the plus button in Google of creating. And everything in Google's, find the plus, you're probably good. But it's great because if you want to schedule a Google Meet, it's right there. You can change dates. If you want to get fancy, you can do appointments, but we may need another session.
Hey, I promise, and all the Mazik family and folks that tuned in, I will speak a lot less next week when we do this all again and give you lots of time for calendar.
No, I think we probably went on a couple tangents, and that's okay. So, all right, I'm going to stop screen sharing because it looks like everybody else who's on next is ready.
No.
But were there any questions in the chat that we should mention or address? Or are we good?
Let's see. Catherine Grant. That's what that button's for. She's excited too. So I know it's really neat. All those, you shared so many great things. Oh my goodness. Yeah. The chat is extremely busy and it's just, they're singing your praises. This is something that I think even as somebody who thinks they're organized struggles with still, because everything just goes and quickly you open in that Google Drive and it's just, and I like that you take the time to organize it. because I always tell people it's like the bottom of my closet and my shoes that I always mean to put in the neat spots,
Yeah.
but it's always a mess at the bottom. So, which is funny. So, yep.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And as Kyle and Kate alluded to, they're on next week. So check that schedule out. And and it's always like teaching your first block class. And then the second time is even better because you're thinking, oh, I didn't get to this and I want to make sure. And then like Kyle said, we get excited. So we want to share more. But so up next, we have a great group of awesome. Bye. Have a good day. We have a great group that's going to be talking about celebrating conceptual understanding in the primary math classroom. And so we have Andrea Higdon. I'm so excited to see you again. Amber Wise and Shaylee Ice. I hope I'm saying your name right. I always mess people's names up. Elisa Bynum and Olivia Penland. And you guys have been here before, and you guys are probably sharing lots of more goodies. And we're excited to have you today. I'll let you introduce yourselves and then start right off at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Good morning, guys. I'm Andrea Higdon, your elementary math lead. Happy to hear and serve you. And I just now learned so many quick tips from Kate. I'm inspired to jump into Google Keep now. And I'm going to pass it on and have Amber introduce herself.
Hi guys, I am Amber Wise. I am the AIC at Smyrna Elementary, and I'm going to pass it off to Alyssa.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Bynum, and I am a kindergarten teacher at Smyrna Elementary, and I'm going to pass it on to Shaylee.
Hi everyone, I'm Shaylee Ice. I am a kindergarten teacher at Norton Commons Elementary, and I'm going to pass it off to Olivia.
Hi, I'm Olivia Penland, and I am a kindergarten teacher at Carrick.
Okay, I'm going to try to make sure I've got closed caption on. I do. Let's go. Okay, so we're here today to share about conceptual understanding with virtual manipulatives. And we're here because we know we need to share and have experiences that are positive for all learners. The National Research Council conducted a conclusive study titled Adding It Up several years ago. And it was in response to this growing concern for students not having mathematical thinking. And we know with this globalization of markets and information technology, and the majority of our careers are in STEM fields, we've got to learn to support students in learning to think mathematically and thinking mathematically to learn. So these amazing teachers are here to share about the concrete representational abstract sequence of learning. And so the big question is, why are manipulatives important? So I'm looking to two things. I'm looking for the 3 pillars of JCPS and then the mathematical practices on the right. And you'll see how they go hand in hand. Equity is the foundation for everything we do in this district, and it means access for all. And we must provide that equitable access to support students building number sense and learning grade level content if we're going to overcome this achievement gap and grow every child. Zaretta Hammond has an amazing text, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, and she refers to this inequitable access of students of poverty, English language learners, and students of color. And we need to support all students shifting from dependent learners to independent thinkers and learners. And we do that by providing tools for access. Virtual manipulatives are one of these tools. And you're going to hear from each of these teachers how they're using the tools intentionally to support students in making sense of problems and persevering. You'll see that over on Standard of Math Practice 1, and justifying their thinking, and that's Standard of Math Practice 3. Amber, Alyssa, Shaylee, and Olivia are still learning, and they're going to talk about that, how to meet students and families' needs during this time. But they're going to share the intentional structures and the flexible learning opportunities they've provided for their students synchronously and asynchronously. I can't wait for you to hear from Shaylee when she describes the social emotional learning she's explicit with in the math routine, Which One Doesn't Belong. She's coached her kindergarten students to be emerging innovators and effective communicators on Google Meet through shared pictures. Her sweet kinders are looking for and expressing repeated reasoning, which is Standard Math Practice 8, as they effectively communicate, which is a backpack skill, as they justify their thinking, which is Math Practice 3. You see how these work hand in hand. You're also going to hear Amber share about Miss Shoemaker's primary students They're prepared and resilient learners as they engage in this Pixar quest. During the quest, students are using tools modeled to make sense of number and structure in the base 10 system, which is standard math practice 7, as they engage in these visual tasks. We know the standards of mathematical practice and the backpack skills are equally important as content standards. And you'll hear how each of these ladies provide accelerated, meaningful learning experiences, integrating the content with these high-yield instructional strategies. On this slide, you look to the graphic on the left, talks about mathematical rigor. And we realize that building conceptual understanding is the foundation where students start to apply and procedural fluency flows from this. And Alyssa is going to share how she provides these seamless opportunities using Screencastify and virtual manipulatives to support her kinders in building conceptual understanding with teen numbers and building fluency in 5 and 10. The math norms on the right are from Joe Bowler, and Alyssa is sending a strong message that math is about learning, not performing. And you're also going to hear from Olivia as she shares one of my favorite number sense routines, Guess My Way, as she differentiates intentionally for her kindergartner students and consciously plans asynchronous opportunities to play for students who are unable to meet live. That's equitable access. Olivia knows her kinders know that math's about communicating and connections, not about performing. You're going to hear all of these amazing teachers, and it's very evident that they know that everyone can learn math to the highest levels. So let me get started and show you where to find these tools. First, you go to the JCPS NTI page, and you'll hit Teacher Toolkit, then Teaching and Learning, and then Mathematics. From there, you'll scroll down to Virtual Manipulatives with Workspace. These are manipulatives from the Math Learning Center, and they're available at all times, not just NTI. So you can also access them through the screen on the left says mathlearningcenter.org. These tools are amazing, and the first 4 have sharing options, and I'll let these ladies talk about how the ease of that with students. I also want to remind you that there's a screencast on how to use these manipulatives and access them. It's super easy that you can watch. It's about 15 minutes if you need additional support. So before we begin, I want you to begin thinking, how might you use them? We've all learned so much during this time. But what's the struggle right now? Is it reaching kids synchronously or asynchronously? Is it with tools? Is it during a part of your virtual workshop? And I ask you to set a goal, narrow your focus, and start today. Choose one thing that you hear from these ladies and try it. Perfect never gets off the paper or across the screen. With that, I'm going to pass to Amber.
Hi guys, as I mentioned earlier, I am the AIC at Smyrna. So today I'm going to share with you a few ways that I've seen the teachers in my building use virtual manipulatives and real life experiences to make their work more meaningful, more engaging, and to build that conceptual understanding. So through NTI, it has been a learning and growing experience for all of us, and I'm truly amazed at how the teachers in my building have adapted. They're willing to try new things, and they're putting themselves out there during this time. So as Andrea mentioned, I challenge each of you to find something from our session today and go for it, just as the teachers we're showcasing today have. So the first teacher that I'm going to showcase today is Miss Shoemaker, and she is a first grade teacher. She created this Pixar quest that Andrea mentioned for her students. And the first part of it was students had $15 to build their Pixar team. So this worked on or focused on using friendly numbers and combinations of 10 to get to 15, buying whatever characters they wanted to go on this quest with. So I reached out to Ms. Shoemaker after seeing this on the first grade choice board, and I asked her, what is this quest? What's the next step that your kids are going to do? And at first we weren't real sure where we were going to go next, but she said that if I could come up with something or had an idea, that she was willing to go for it. So I took a little while and thought about it, and I came up with this idea that Charles Muntz, the guy that you see on the right side of the screen, he's the villain from Up, that he captured Slinky, and he's going to take him back to be a part of his dog pack, and that the kids could go on a quest to find Slinky and give him back to Bonnie, and along the way they would be solving math problems to figure out where Slinky was, to rescue him, and just to finish that quest. So well, the first question that they had to solve in order to rescue Slinky was the math problem, was the clock problem that you see on the screen. And they had to tell time to the half hour. And if they got this question correct, then they would figure out where Slinky was. Now, the cool thing that Miss Shoemaker did here was there's a formatting option in Google Form where you can make it to where only one question appears at a time. And only if the students get that question right does the next question come up. So once students answer this time question correctly, then the next one will come up. So the next question, if we go to the next slide, is about adding and subtracting using place value understanding and visual models. So if the students answered this part of the quest correctly, then they would release Slinky from his cage and go on to part 3 of the quest. Next slide. And part 3 of the quest is where students had to use virtual manipulatives. So the Math Learning Center manipulatives that Andrea mentioned earlier were used on this. And what Ms. Shoemaker did was put the link into the Google form. Students just clicked that link and it took them straight to the Math Learning Center Shapes app so that students could build a boat and escape from Paradise Island and return Slinky back to Bonnie. So this does not have the sharing feature that Andrea mentioned earlier. However, Ms. Shoemaker was still able to use it. She just copied that link into her form, and then students could take a screenshot or could take a picture with their phone and send it to her that way. They also had to go back to the Google form after making their boat and let Ms. Shoemaker know what shapes they used and how many of those shapes that they used. So even if it doesn't have that shareable feature, don't be afraid to try it. Ms. Shoemaker just knocked this out of the park. I gave her the idea, but she ran with it, building in the standards, building in the Google form, making it relevant, engaging, and meaningful essential standards like the building of the place value. So she did a great job building in that conceptual understanding as well. The next teacher, the next 2 learning experiences I'm going to talk about came from a 2nd grade teacher, Miss Presley. And Miss Presley has only been in the teaching field since February. She was hired, so she was in for like less than a month before we went to NTI. But she's not let that be an excuse for her. She has been a complete rock star. So one of the things that her and another 2nd grade teacher have been doing, Miss Stradley, is they have been doing the number of the day, where they talk about place value understanding and then also some mental math strategies. So I attended one of Miss Presley's number of the days and saw that she was just using a chart paper hung up behind her with all of these same things that you see on the screen. And then I just talked to her about possibly using the virtual manipulatives, the number pieces that you see. And the very next day, she was using it in her classroom. So this is exactly what she does with her kids every day. And the thing that I wanted to point out is this base 10 bank. This is where they take the number of the day from the day before and the number of the current day, and they add those together using that place value understanding. So when I combine my ones, or I add my ones, I add my tens, and I add my hundreds, they really are able to see that concrete manipulative and why those numbers add up to what they add up to. So the other one that I am going to talk about that Miss Presley did is the array project. She had students go around their house and find like objects and had them create concrete arrays with them. And then they had to write 2 repeated addition equations. And then she also challenged them with 1 multiplication equation. Now we know multiplication is not a 2nd grade standard, but she still added that in there, and those 3rd grade teachers are going to be so happy when those 2nd graders come up knowing that repeated addition and multiplication are the same thing pretty much. So just another fun way to make the work more engaging and more relevant for their kids. So I'm going to pass it on to Alyssa that's going to prove K can too.
Thank you, Amber. Like I previously mentioned, I am a kindergarten teacher at Smyrna Elementary, and today I'm going to talk about how you can use the virtual manipulatives from the Math Learning Center that Andrea showed you how to access during many lessons and when assigning tasks for your students to complete during NTI. So displayed on the slide are two pre-recorded lessons using the virtual manipulatives that I created for my students. The lesson on the left is using the number line tool to solve addition and subtraction word problems. And the other on the right is composing and decomposing teen numbers into tens and further ones using the number pieces tool. I choose to use Screencastify to record all of my mini lessons, and then I link them on a choice board for my students to view. I hope you get a chance at a later date to view these examples I've provided of pre-recorded mini lessons using these virtual manipulatives. So these manipulatives have been extremely helpful to myself and my entire kindergarten team when pre-recording mini lessons for students or even doing live mini lessons on Google Meet with my class. If you want to take a look at the lessons that I've shared with you, you will see how I modeled the use of both tools, including the number line and number pieces tool for my students. By doing this, it helps students to have an understanding of how to use the tools when completing their assigned work with the given manipulatives. Each day during NTI, I will have a mini lesson using the virtual manipulatives, and then I assign my students work that directly relates to the mini lesson that was taught. This gives students a chance to use and explore the virtual manipulatives to solve similar math problems. Students love using the virtual manipulatives because it engages them and it gives them a chance to explore. We, as a kindergarten team, have gotten a lot of great parent feedback about assignments using these manipulatives because students are more focused on their work and it helps them stay on task. This is essential for all students, but especially those kindergarten students trying to complete their work at home with plenty of distractions and low attention spans. While engaging with the virtual manipulatives, students find these tools so fun they don't even realize they're learning. These manipulatives also give students a chance to show and explain their thinking to the teacher and to others. One thing I do want to highlight about the lessons I've shared is how it helped that the students were already familiar with the tools after using the physical versions of them in the classroom often earlier in the school year. I would highly suggest that teachers use tools their students are already familiar with when designing their lessons. Or if not, I recommend that you spend more time virtually modeling these tools for your students. Like many of you, connecting to students during NTI has been extremely challenging for me. I have about 4 to 7 students join my live sessions because parents are unavailable to assist them logging onto a computer and in general low parent involvement. Because of this, anytime I do a live session that includes a mini lesson, I record it and then I post it in my Google Classroom. This allows students who have missed the live session to go back and view it. On the next 2 slides, it shows tasks I assigned my students directly relating to my mini lesson using the virtual manipulatives from the Math Learning Center. Also shown is completed student work for the given task. The first task I created is on the left. This task focuses on decomposing 10 using the number rack tool. After designing the task for students to complete, the virtual manipulatives make it extremely easy to share the link to the task with your students. There's a share button in the bottom right-hand corner where you can copy the link or even a code for your students to access the task. Students can complete the work and even share an image of their completed work with the teacher. On the right side of the slide, you can see examples of completed student work. One simple way our team has used for students to share their work is having parents email images or screenshots of the completed work from the virtual manipulative page. This encourages parents to help their children with their NTI work and be partners in their learning. The second task I created on the next slide is using the number frames tool shown on the left of the slide. This task focuses on finding a number when paired with a given number that makes 10. On the right of the slide, it shows examples of completed student work for the task. This is just another example of how you could use the virtual manipulatives to assign tasks to your students. Students enjoyed both of these assignments so much as it allowed them to explore the virtual manipulatives and creatively solve given problems. I encourage you to try to use these virtual manipulatives when planning mini lessons and creating engaging tasks for your students to complete during NTI. They have made teaching math during NTI both more effective for me and much more enjoyable for my students. Now on to Shaylee.
Hi, everyone. Like I said earlier, I'm Shaylee Ice from Norton Commons. I am a kindergarten teacher. Today, I just wanted to share with you the journey that my team and I have went through so far through the NTI process. So we started out this process thinking what would be the easiest way for students to complete their math work and the easiest way for parents, because we knew the parents would have to be very involved with the younger students. And we thought, why not just give them a couple math worksheets a week that would be a review or a quick and easy thing that they could do, and they could still keep up on their math skills. We decided to get feedback from parents each week because they are the ones doing most of the work with the students. And after that first week, we quickly came to realize that the worksheets just were not working for most students. They said that the students were not engaged, that even some of the students were refusing to do the work because they just didn't want to do the worksheet. So we knew that we needed to go back to the drawing board and start doing things in NTI like we do in our classrooms every day, but on an easier scale for the parents to complete. So the first thing that I did was I went back and thought about my community meetings that I have on Monday and Thursday. So during these community meetings, I have between 20 and 25 students of my 27 students show up. And we were doing calendar on both days. And I was very intentional with doing calendar because it was completely like we do in our classroom together. So I wanted to be intentional with just keeping it the same. And I thought, well, why don't I do calendar on Monday and do a share? And then on Thursday, I could do a game or a fun activity for the students to do. So one thing that the students really love is something called Which One Doesn't Belong. And it's a website that you can go to, and I have it linked on here for you. And it gives you all different types of examples of different Which One Doesn't Belong activities. It's always 4 squares, and it ranges from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. So there are plenty of examples for you to use in your classroom. I copy and paste the ones I want to use onto a Google slide, and then I share my screen with the students. Now, the good thing about Which One Doesn't Belong is there is no wrong answer, and the students know that. So at our school, we really focus on social emotional learning and them being engaged and connected with our classroom community. And this is a great way to do that because all of the students are able to share their thinking. And none of them are scared to share their thinking because they know there is no wrong answer. And another thing that I really wanted to do was give them buy-in to some of the activities that we were completing. So the example on the right is one that I actually completed with examples that the students have been sending in from their work. So I did this to where the students could see their work examples. They can know that I'm looking at them, I'm using them. And today I did another Which One Doesn't Belong in my community meeting. And the students were literally saying, oh, that's mine, that's mine. So they were getting really excited about seeing their work. And it's helping them become effective communicators because they not only tell me which one doesn't belong, but they also tell me why it doesn't belong. And it helps them have a voice in the community meetings, and it helps them stay engaged. On the next slide, you will see that I put some work that we have assigned for the students. So we decided, once the parents were giving us feedback that the worksheets just weren't working, we said, what could we do as a team to where the students could be more engaged, but it could still be an easy task for the parents to help with. So the first thing that we did is we came up with a task where the students were identifying 2D shapes, and I gave them a template of the paper, and they could either print it out or they could write it. And they went around their house and found 5 objects, and they were to say what the object was and what shape it was. And with this, I had a lot of really great examples. So I had one little girl draw a picture frame, and she said it was a square. Or I had one little girl, she drew a box and said that it was a rectangle. But again, we got more parent feedback from the parents, and they said that this was better, but it still wasn't great because some of the students were getting frustrated because they had a hard time drawing the object, and they wanted the object to look like it looked in their house. So again, my team and I went back to the drawing board and we said, what else could we do? So in the last example, we decided, why not use real world examples from the students using things in their house to build shapes. So we wanted to connect the real world examples so the students would stay engaged and they could see how they're using these objects. So you can see in the first picture, the little girl is making a diamond with the crowns. The second one, the little boy made a larger square out of 4 Post-it notes. And the third one, the little girl made a triangle out of the little paint containers. And the students were so engaged in this. I even had students send me videos explaining each of their shape to me, which was above and beyond what I could ever expect from them. So I hope you learned something through hearing my NTI process so far, and I hope you can just take one thing and try something new. So I'm going to pass it on to Olivia.
Hi, so like I said earlier, my name is Olivia Penland. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Carrick. I'm going to quickly talk about my journey through NTI with students and then go into how I'm using virtual manipulatives to enhance student learning throughout the NTI process. So it has also been hard for me to engage with kids during live meetings. So sharing strategies and thinking has proved to be challenging, but I feel like that challenge has been conquered through the use of virtual manipulatives. So I host live meetings with small groups of kids who are able to join and then post the live meetings to Google Classroom for students to complete on their own time. Students send pictures of their work, and I have modeled ways to do this so that I can see their thinking and the strategies that they're using. And I'll go into this a little more in detail later in my presentation. So we're using the same practice as we do in the classroom. Students are using manipulatives daily and engaging in intentional work to support the understanding of foundational skills in math, but also help students move from concrete to abstract reasoning. So one way that I'm using virtual manipulatives is through games. And one game that we have played is Guess My Way. And you'll see that in the first 2 pictures on the slide. So Guess My Way can be played one-on-one in small groups or whole class. And I'm going to tell you a little bit how to play just in case you would like to take this game back to your classroom. So Partner 1, which is usually me, as I have played with my students, thinks of a target number, and then I create that number on a Reck and Rec using 2 racks, so a rack on the top and a rack on the bottom. And then Partner 2, which has been the class, tries to guess the way that Partner 1, which is me, made the target number. So in the second picture on the slide, you'll see that the target number is 3. And under the grayed out shade is a Reck and Rec that I made 3 on. So students are trying to guess how many beads are on the top and how many are on the bottom to make 3. So a student might guess that there are 3 on top and 0 on the bottom. If they were correct, or if they were incorrect, I would say 3 plus 0 is 3, but that's not my way. And I would encourage them to guess again. So as students guess, I record the equations on the screen so that they can keep track of ways that have already been guessed And if they guessed correct, I would say, you guessed my way, 3 on the top plus 0 on the bottom is 3. So because of the shade, students can play live or on their own time. And by clicking the little eye at the bottom of the shade, you can easily see what's behind it. So it's student friendly and works well if they are not able to join live. So this game can be used as formative assessment and easily differentiated. So students could be challenged by adding another rack of 10 and thinking of 3 numbers that could be added together to make the target number, or by simply increasing the target number. So in my class, we've been working within 10, but I could bump that number up to within 20 or whatever would fit the needs of my students. And then on the next slide is how I've used number talks to engage students. My questions are always the same. How many do you see and how do you see them? Students are used to these questions because it's the same as when we did number talks in the classroom setting. So we're currently working on double 10 frames, and students are using strategies such as counting on, pretend to 10. Some students are making 10 and using mental math. So they're doing all different things. And like I've said, I've modeled how they can show me their thinking when they submit their work. So you'll see that some students make 5 and 10 on a 10 frame. And so they draw arrows or circle numbers to show me that. Some students write equations to show that they did mental math, or they label the dots with numbers to show that they counted on. So they've done lots of different things, and it's been really helpful, although I don't always get to see the kids live. So one student even shared his strategy by pretending he was a teacher, which was super cool. He created a video and sent it to me explaining his thinking. He was telling me how many dots he saw and how he saw them. So that was super cool as well. So virtual manipulatives support play with kids in games, and also the understanding of conceptual fluency. The site is super easy and user-friendly, and it's been a game changer for my class because of the equity and opportunity it provides for all students. So I would definitely recommend trying it in your classroom and just going for it. So now I'm going to pass it back to Andrea.
I know we're a few minutes over, but these teachers are amazing. Like, I'm getting more ideas just listening to them and playing off that. And my favorite phrase is perfect never gets off the paper or across the screen.
But we know really innovative teachers are out there working hard every day, finding ways to reach kids. And you heard several ways just now. So we want to invite you to a Twitter chat next Thursday. We're taking a week off, but next Thursday we'll be on a Twitter chat from 8 to 8:30. And all the panelists with us will be there as well, where we can talk about how we're all growing together.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. I know that there were lots of people that were in the chat with you and felt like your information was so beneficial. And I know I've gotten to see you guys before, and you are making a difference. And Andrea, I think I sent you something where my son was he was doing something that his teacher had them do, which was from this actual presentation. So thank you again for making a difference for our students.
Thanks. I love it, Elena. The pepperoni pizza.
Yes, it was so cute. He loved it. I don't know. I had to speed up that video because it was super long, but
it was great to use Jamboard too, so thank you.
You're welcome. That's my jam. Okay. Well, have a great day, ladies, and we'll see you next time. All right. So next we have celebrating learning about the world with a world in Beluga. And we've got Evan Schwartz, who's with Beluga, and Alan Young, our very own. And I want to welcome you guys into this JCPS digital learning. Before I do that, though, I want to make sure anybody joining us on that chat drops in and puts any questions that you have for Evan and Alan, as well as introduce yourself and tell us where you teach and what you teach. And then we will be happy to support you as well. So I'm going to let you gentlemen take it away and introduce yourself formally, because I don't want to mess that up. And Alan, this is the program that I do believe I've gotten to see a presentation on, and it's quite interesting.
Good. Good morning, Elaine. Good morning. And luckily we have Evan Schwartz of Beluga with us. And Evan, I'll let you introduce yourself. And Elaine, you might want to help him
with regard to how he has to turn his closed captions on and stuff like that?
Thanks, Alan. Elaine, great to meet you too.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Yeah, I appreciate being here. And I'll tell you guys, we're excited, just to be collaborating with JCPS. We've seen a lot of great schools start adopting Beluga within district. So we're really excited to kind of expand the word and really what we're all about here today. So to give you a quick idea of Beluga, Beluga started about 3 years ago. I'm the CEO and founder at Beluga. My name's Evan Schwartz. And Beluga's really started with the concept of how we creating a social learning environment for education to become accessible, impactful, and equitable, right? And what does that all mean? We looked at our current world and realized that traditionally, most information is being dictated down through traditional media outlets. And we said, how do we kind of spin that on its head and give children and teachers as well the ability to really relate to what's going on around the world, not necessarily just from media, but from personal connections. And in so many ways, learning about the world with the world. So our entire experience in Beluga really provides educators and students with content and community that is not only able to hit their creative and curiosity goals, but also connect directly back to their core curriculum and subject area to really provide this 21st century learning experience. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. Give me 1 second.
We sure can.
Excellent. So I'll tell you guys right out the gate, you might see a lot of mental health stuff within the platform. One of the really neat things that I encourage everyone to check this out, with May being Mental Health Awareness Month and everything that's currently taking place in the world, our team and about 50 organizations that we work with really prioritized mental health this month and are serving up lesson plans, panel sessions, keynotes, activities from global organizations, experts, educators, even students as well, all relating to their own mental health. So you guys are probably going to see a lot of that today. But what you're seeing currently is our main interface. This is after a student or teacher would log in. One main point is that students and teachers are seeing a very similar experience within the platform. So within Beluga, everything is kind of framed in this Netflixy type of environment. And what we really look to do with our technology is meet a learner where they're at. So upon registering for Beluga and entering the platform, teachers are the first point of entry. Once they are in, they're able to invite their students. We do this to ensure that it is made for education by education. But upon signing in, every single user will have to go through about a 1 minute onboarding process. And it's really just the system getting to know them better, understanding how old they are, what they're interested in, what subject areas they're coming in through. And from that, this entire library populates. And our library is made up of content really from organizations worldwide, educators worldwide, and even students worldwide. We work with about 160 global organizations, everything from the United Nations and UNICEF down to small grassroots organizations in Tanzania protecting the elephants, and really look to, in so many words, bring their content to life. This is actually a Central High School teacher right there, Keisha Antel. So great to see that one pop up immediately. But what you're looking at is my personalized library. This is from an educator perspective. So I'm able to discover all content directly within the platform relating to multiple different subject areas. But as you can see from the top part of this, it's going to start ranking content a little bit differently for me. And these are our version of units. Within each of these, there's what we call episodes. And the episodes are basically lesson plans. I'm going to bring you guys to one that I think is going to be pretty neat. So you could search up here by any key term. We have over 30,000 hours of educational material that has been built into the platform. Teachers and students are able to search by subject. So about 13 core subjects, and then about 200 micro subjects underneath each one. So really identifying exactly what we want to do. And in the SDGs are a really interesting thing. And I know this is something that's brand new in education. So the SDGs started in 2015 by the United Nations saying,
what do they stand for, Evan?
Yeah, great question, Alan. So the SDGs stand for the Sustainable Development Goals. And Alan, you know how big of a fan we are of these. We basically work with the United Nations on this, guys, and a few other organizations worldwide to implement this into education. So the SDGs were created to solve 17 tremendous goals around the world by the year 2030. Now, what we've seen the SDGs really lend themselves to is being a real world standard, in so many words, for education, to say after all this information and rich knowledge has been passed on to the student, how do they then put it to work outside of the classroom? And the SDGs are that framework where students can connect it through social impact, activities, and engagement, their learning experience, to really making the world a better place. So I'm going to search, let's see, we'll do gender equality for this one. And guys, keep in mind, what you're seeing here is actually 19 results that are specific to me as an educator. This profile you're looking at right now has been built for a middle school, so we'll call 7th and 8th grade high school, or middle school, excuse me, teacher that really is focused on resource and social studies. So in gender equality, I could scroll down. I could see exactly what content has been made for me. You'll see the creator, and there's Keisha again, which is great to see. You'll see these little dots. These are the SDGs that it connects with. You'll see how many episodes are in the series, so how many lessons, and then what else is available to you. So our search is completely compatible with what's happening in a classroom. Something to mention as well, when we work with districts for the summer and really fall semester 2020, is that all content will also relate to local standards. So for JCPS, for instance, this might relate to Kentucky Common Core, but also I think the neat part about the platform, just knowing JCPS and working with some schools there already, how does this connect to Backpack? How does this connect to these 5 success skills? And that'll be something that we discuss next week. We have 2 great sessions coming up with JCPS educators. I want to show you guys this series, for instance, though. This is just top of mind from my side. Yesterday was International Student Voice Day. So a really great day to just celebrate students doing amazing things within our own community. This is what a content experience looks like in Beluga. So this is our unit in so many words. Teachers can bookmark it and save it for later. They could view the content. So what is actually in there? What does it mean to me? What subject areas does it align to? What age is it for? How long is it actually going to take my students? A little bit about the experience in itself. And then if it looks fantastic for me as an educator, I might click Enroll Students and Collaborate. If I enroll my students, I could see which classrooms are currently registered under my profile. I could click Period 3 Learners. Under here, you'll see all the content that is now available to you as an educator. So this is completely packaged up and ready to go in lesson plan format for teachers. I could select all of them. I could select specific ones. One of the big things that you guys will see is the age appropriateness. Beluga is certified by COPA, FERPA, and GDPR compliant across the board. We work in about 100 countries, so safety and security is the top priority to us. One of the things in platform is that students will never see content in their own profile that is outside of their age requirement. As an educator, if you're saying, hey, I have 10-year-old students and this Finding Your Heartbreak Grace series is perfect for my kids, you're able to assign that piece of content to your students, but they would never see it on their own. As an educator, once my content has been selected, I say these 3 are great for me. I can enroll my classroom. If I enrolled my classroom, all students would then see a notification that popped open here that said, Evan would like to have you work on Grace Action to Impact. My students would then select that piece of content and dive directly into it. So every single experience is happening through each individual user's own profile. One of the really neat things as well through Beluga, and I'm going to go back to Enroll Students and Collaborate, is the ability to actually start learning globally. So I might have a great network within Beluga on the social side, and I'm clicking these episodes again, right? These 3 are perfect for my students, but I know that Alan is one of the teachers in my school, in my district, or a great educator that I've connected with through Beluga or outside of Beluga in my education circle. I know Alan's students are learning at the exact same pace as mine or have a great trending topic coming up. I might select a name in here from my network, click enroll classroom and request collaboration. And not only are my students getting this notification now, but Alan is getting this notification as my partner teacher. If Alan accepts that notification, his students are actually paired up with mine directly in each individual activity that we select. Beluga does not dictate the learner experience for teachers or students. Teachers are able to view and engage with as much content, as little content, as many people in network as they want. So we've really seen, kind of learning come to life in a sense where teachers are able to connect with different subject areas or like-minded subject areas, but get a completely different perspective, not only from the subject matter, but from a full cultural matter as well.
So, Evan, these playlists are really essentially learning activities and experiences that kids can go through, put them together to form a learning journey, if you will. And they can do that individually if a teacher decides that, or collaboratively with kids in their class or with others across the world to do that.
That's exactly it. Yeah, Alan, that's spot on. I'll tell you, a lot of JCPS that we've seen, and even schools throughout the US, are going to choice boards. Right? So we've seen this happening over recent times, especially with remote learning taking place. What we realize is that the choice boards are really able to blend pretty nicely into this experience, into one of our features specifically, Alan, like you mentioned, called playlist. So playlists provide educators with the ability to look around Beluga, say there's a lot of content here. How do I make this specific for my own classroom? Right, where there might be 5 different lessons in this activity, but I only want one of them. How do I come into this, create a playlist, and save it to my playlist? Each playlist within Beluga has its own unique URL. What we've actually seen from JCPS educators is they're coming into here, copying, pasting this URL, and adding it directly to their Google Classroom for their students, where they're able to pre-populate content from really all around the world that's packaged up. They could publish this publicly. They could have it privately just for their students. This is almost, if you will, kind of an own personal textbook in a sense, where educators are able to continue building on said subject area. They could delete things, but really kind of it's their living, breathing curriculum.
And I noticed on the left-hand side when it said those playlists, it kind of gives a little bit of an estimated time or something as well. So teachers can kind of get into these, check them out as they should, because if you're going to use these as creating a learning experience for your kids, you'll obviously want to get all into them. But the other thing that I think is kind of neat is that this is not just a set of curated learning experiences that are out there, but that teachers are creators of these. Our own, as you've already pointed out, and that's how these get populated, and Beluga vets them all, correct?
That's exactly it, Alan. And I'll tell you, we're not only working with teachers and organizations, but we're working with students too. And we've really seen how is, really everyone able to learn from one another and teach one another. So all content in our platform is vetted.
Evan, I have a question from the chat. We have Deborah Berger. She says, is this mainly for middle school or high school?
Yeah, great question, Deborah. So I'll tell you, it started out actually for middle school, and that lasted about 2 weeks. So that was a quick learning experience on our side, and great learning experience, the best we ever could have had. But all of a sudden, thanks to PLNs and just the education community, one day we had 6-year-olds and the next 18-year-olds on the platform, and that was about a month into our launch. So what the platform has really been based around is K-12 completely, Deborah. We have content for all age groups, all subject areas. I'll tell you, middle school probably holds a little bit higher percentage in our platform, but not by much. So all of them are within the 30% range. So we don't necessarily have a dead even split. Middle school might be about 30% of our network, followed by elementary school and then high school. So we've really seen a pretty even display across the board on what age groups and subject areas are able to come into the platform. Saying that, elementary school there's clearly challenges, with the early age learners. So we work with some districts that are bringing pre-K to 2 on here, we'll call it, and we've built some features in specifically for that. So there's talk to text within the platform. There's text to talk, making it really easy for students to communicate. For really young learners, what we've seen educators do is come in, and instead of having all their students sign up, where a 6 or 7-year-old is going to probably take a little bit longer than a class period to go through one of these assignments, an educator is able to come and have their own profile and learn as one classroom together, as opposed to going through a complete activity. But there's content fully across the board, from learning how to read and learning math, to talking about social justice and the pandemic globally now.
The interesting thing, though, is that I think that there's not just content like on here, but this is a creative platform where teachers, for example, can not only create their own things, but also mix and match with these to create the kind of learning experiences that they want their kids to have. And I think that is makes it able to be tailored to your kids, because it's the teacher that is the one that is personalizing this and setting it up so that it's going to meet the level of where they think their kids are.
Alan, you nailed it on that side. And just back to the previous point, so everything within the platform is vetted, and making sure that it's proper for the education community. But what we really try to hang our hat on is, how do we create storytelling and content as opposed to that traditional lesson plan? So Alan, to your point, kind of mixing and matching what the learning experience looks like here. Our team of educators internally are constantly working with our community to understand not necessarily how we fix your math lesson, right? That's not our job. Our job is to understand, how do we take your learning experience and bring it to life in the best way possible for your students, and then, if you're open to it, for the community as well. So what you guys are looking at right now is actually an episode. This is our lesson plans. So this was from that previous series that you looked at. This was actually an episode created completely by a student. This student is a 13-year-old child in Ottawa, Canada, where she was so moved by hearing stories about hardships in South Sudan that she decided to create her own journey. And this is her, Grace. So what you're seeing, and I won't play it for you guys because I know we're short on time, but ultimately within this entire experience, Grace built within the platform, and I'll show you what our builder looks like, all of these learning outcomes. So we do everything from videos to images to case studies to text to multiple choice to upload responses. The really neat thing about it is everyone is building in different ways and shapes. So we don't dictate any of that experience as well. As a teacher, you're able to scroll freely throughout a learning experience. As a student, you cannot. You have to go through every single activity. For instance, this video is 5 minutes and 59 seconds. A child cannot just scroll to 5 minutes and 58 seconds and storm through it. If a user logs out, it will bring them directly back to this point, so the 3-second mark, upon logging in again. One of the other aspects within Beluga is not only our deep dive series for students and classrooms, but also professional development. And this is kind of a new initiative for the organization, where we started hearing from a lot of different educators worldwide, and them coming back and saying, guys, the PD in our district is great, but I'm really interested in other things, right? How do I get access to this? So what we've done on our side is create the exact same experience for students, but also now for teachers. And we've partnered up with great organizations worldwide, universities, experts, and educators, some accredited bodies as well, where they're able to come into Beluga, access big topics on professional development, and really guide their journey. One of the things we take pride in is the personalization of the platform, and understanding how we meeting a learner where they're at, and always asking the question, what happens next? Right? So you just finished this great activity. How do you continue with that? So everything, not only for students, but for also teachers, are paired up where they're able to continuously get more content, more connections, and more community engagements. On our community side, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Our community is made up of your peers, your students, and the global Beluga network. Within my peers, I'm able to get connected with any single educator within the platform. One important thing to note, students cannot search for other students or teachers in the platform. Educators are the only ones that can free search. From this aspect, I could search, let's say Shauna here. I can message Shauna directly. I could share files directly with Shauna within the platform. I could see Shauna's profile. And one of the really neat things that we're super excited about is Beluga Live. So Beluga Live is our video chat player. Again, everything COPA, FERPA, GDPR compliant. We know that has been a major issue for schools over the last few months. Everything lives within the platform. So it is a closed private community where I could pop open a video and communicate directly with Shauna, or even as a teacher, I could communicate with my students through video chat in the platform. I could chat with my students. So James, hey, fix your homework. I could see James's profile and track James's progress in the platform on what he's engaging in, who he's communicating with directly within the content. I could share files with James as well. And one of the cool things is the ability to really have classroom chats or group chats. We've seen this be a nice savior within the pandemic age right now, where teachers are able to come into their classroom, pop open a period, have their learners all in one place, and have that video chat stay within Beluga. Now, what I mean by that staying within Beluga, it does not bring you to a different screen. It's going to pop open a video chat in either the left or right-hand corner, and it docks directly within the platform. So you can now learn, scroll, explore the platform while still seeing your community that you're learning with. Within the platform as well, if you don't know anyone, we always see districts are getting connected with their own colleagues first, which we always suggest. But if you're coming to this and really want to get, a little global, we'll call it, we do have suggested connections as well. We kind of call it teacher dating in a sense. And all of this stuff is really paired up based on your profile. So Robin is matching up with me based on my student subject areas, my subject that I teach, my age, and my exploration within the platform. I could chat with Robin. I could see Robin's profile. If Robin doesn't look like a good fit for me, I could click next and go to Chandra, and so on, moving forward from there. So really trying to make this as social as possible to kind of build a PLN within the system and within the content.
Yeah, it's a global learning community in that regard.
That's exactly it, Alan. You nailed it at that. And the last thing I'm going to show you guys is just your dashboard, right, where you're driving from. So teachers are coming into this and seeing a little bit more capabilities than students. As an educator, I could see my deep dive series. So again, our units and lesson plans. I could see Gradebook, and Gradebook is just kind of our version of being able to communicate with students. I could see exactly what my students are writing, what they're answering. I could correct it. I could ask them for revisions. I could mark it as done. We're not the platform that's assigning an actual grade, though. We've seen some integrations with Beluga depending on what the district is and depending on probably what the LMS is locally, on how they're integrating Beluga with their LMS. There's some neat features in here. My created series, which I'm going to come back to as our last point here, my bookmark series. So what I've explored in Beluga that might be great for my next unit or my next lesson plan, or maybe something from a year from now where, hey, summer's starting and I know this would be fantastic in the fall. My students I could come into. Teachers can have absolutely unlimited students in here, unlimited classrooms. I'll click in my classroom here. One of the things in our platform is not only tracking students, but the ability to pop open a classroom. So instead of those long verification codes, we might just do period 1 learners. Instead of long verification codes, we use images where students would still have to register from our homepage, beluga.org. They would enter their name, their username, get approved, and before entering the platform directly, have to identify who their teacher is, so Mrs. Jones, and what are Mrs. Jones' images associated with her classroom. I'm going to click pencil and chalkboard, and that's Mrs. Jones's profile images. Once a student selects that, their profile pops open in mine, and I could approve them or decline them Most of the time, 99.9%, you're going to approve, and that student is now in your classroom. Teachers can also share multiple students. So if it's one school, high school or middle, a student can be in multiple teacher profiles throughout the day. Playlist, again, you guys saw a quick look at what that looks like. I could share with my class, ones that I might have created and then bookmarked. I could track my own professional development within the platform as well, see all the courses that I'm enrolled in. And the final thing I'm going to show you is my created series. This is really where the platform comes to life from the creative side, where teachers are able to come into Beluga and create not only for their classroom, but create a unique learning experience that's able to be collaborated on with their students, with other classrooms, either locally or globally. As an educator, I'm able to edit freely. One of the neat things is I'm able to actually co-create with educators. So generally what we've seen is local educators creating, but we've also seen global, where there might be a great teacher in Louisville that connects and collaborates with someone in Florida and then someone in Beijing, China. And they're all able to build together. And we've really seen those bridges on learning start taking place through this creation process.
And I think, Evan, that's what we'll learn a little bit more about next week on Tuesday at 9:30 with what our teachers from Central
have been able to do as they've created some of their own, as well as being able to use the ones that Beluga already has.
Absolutely. And we've really seen those Central teachers do some great work, not only connecting to backpack and success skills, but also to their local R&I framework. And how is it kind of implementing content both in the classroom and out of the classroom. So this is kind of our full overview. You're able to enroll, view stats, chat with Beluga. This brings the content creator directly to our team to communicate on any help that might be needed. Every single episode within Beluga, a lesson plan, is able to be shared socially or through Google Classroom, and then editing the content itself. So our builder, we try to make it seamless as possible. We're adding things to this, removing things from this at all times to make that learning experience as dynamic as possible. As a content creator, you have a quick dashboard. How long is it going to take? What is the age group? SDG again if you want it. Everything is hyper tagged within the platform, so understanding exactly who it's going to. And then finally, the different slide types. Our slide types touch on everything from text to images, to videos, to short answer, to video response. I'll show you guys a quick one, and I know we're getting to the top of the hour here. This means
These can also be linked to standards in our success skills, correct?
Absolutely. So that's one of the big things, standards for back to school season specifically. Everything will link to localized standards with our district partners. So they'll come in here and see exactly how the content relates to what they're doing. And then the success skills, Alan, I know you mentioned it. I mean, that's almost naturally built into the Beluga DNA, is understanding those 5 dynamic learning experience and benchmarks ultimately. That is really the Beluga backbone, ultimately, without even knowing it on our side. It's how those success skills have fit in. You can put notes here as well. So
make sure that we give time to our next presenters here. I think we're starting to go over here a little bit. But if you would like to learn more about Beluga, certainly go to beluga.org. This spelled BELOUGA. And then also come back for next week at 9:30 on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yes, thank you, Evan and Alan. That was, I love this program, and it's so interesting and brilliant, Evan, to help develop this tool. And I know that a lot of schools are using this, and I hope that more are able to use it too in the future. So thank you, and you guys have a great day and great almost afternoon.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye. Well, I want to welcome Summer. And she's going to be talking about, Summer Barrett, she's going to be talking about Edmentum for middle school and high school. Hello, Summer.
Hey, how are you? I didn't mind at all that they kept going. I feel like I always follow like the coolest programs and like the best presentations ever. We are so lucky to have all these great resources in JCPS. So that's really cool. I've heard a lot about the program, and then I always want to sing the Baby Beluga song after hearing it.
It's so cute. It's so cute. If you're just now joining us in that chat, I'll say real quick, Summer, just introduce yourself. Let us know where you're and what you teach. as well as put any questions that you have for Summer in there, and I'll make sure that she can see those and answer those for you, as well as click that subscribe button, because you will be able to get more information as we upload and chop up these episodes, and as well as you'll be able to find the live link easier. Instead of having to search for it, it'll just show up for you really quickly. Well, Summer, I know we've got some people wanting to learn about Edmentum with middle school and high school, so I'm going to let you go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. My name is Summer Behrens, and I work with Jefferson County High School, and I pretty much am the resource trainer for the Edmentum platform at JCPS. Hopefully, I think Coach Schatzer is on the chat. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them there, and he will answer them for you. And then if there's anything more than that, he'll jot down your name and we can connect. You can also reach me. I'm summer.behrens at Jefferson County. You know the rest. Reach out. Let me know if you have specific questions or needs for your building. That's one of the great things about Edmentum. That they are the platform that owns Study Island. Ashley Byerly is a phenomenal. Rebecca Despain, Sam Bennett, awesome MTSS group who work a lot with Study Island. They're like the guru for that. They've been on here too with great presentations. So please reach out to them if you have Study Island questions. But Edmentum also owns courseware, flex assignments, and exact path. So I really specialize in working with schools and teachers on how can they use courseware and flex assignments to benefit their students and just the different options. There's this preconceived notion when people hear courseware or a title of a company that it's credit recovery only, and that really is not the case. I moved here from Buffalo, New York, and I would have done anything to have a program like this in my high school. We used a different program I won't name and publicly shame them, but it couldn't reach our students. It was extremely difficult. It wasn't customizable. It was only for credit recovery. And even then, kids, we would tell them, you're better off sitting in the class because it was so difficult. That's not to say that courseware or flex assignments are easy. They are definitely not. They're very robust, but they're customizable. So you can meet your students where they're at. My big thing, I cannot believe it's May and that we're here, and I'm so proud of our district and our teachers. I just got off 2 really awesome meetings this morning, and it's like every day I'm learning more and getting to know more people. And just to see the capacity of teachers who before really shied away from technology, and now they're like our front runners. And the digital learning channel, I love checking it out. I often go back in the evening and rewatch the videos, just so I can expand my knowledge, because I would have said I wasn't a super tech savvy teacher, the 17 years that I was in the classroom. I used what I knew and was familiar with. But this silver lining in what's going on is that we've been forced to step outside of our comfort zone and try new things and explore. So I'm really proud of our teachers and just all the work that's being done, and everybody moving forward is thinking of the future. And I always say be 3 steps ahead. And I'm seeing that with our teachers, and they're eager to learn and try out new things. So with courseware, yes, it can be credit recovery. We have a lot of amazing transition teachers throughout the district who are using courseware to help students recover credits that they failed a semester or a school year. Coach Schatzer was talking earlier about students who come from other states, my children included. I worry about that when we were moving, because I had 2 middle schoolers and a high schooler. What would that look like if their New York classes were different, or if they didn't have what they needed? Courseware and flex assignments are a fantastic resource to use for those students too. Another way that you can use it is with our home hospital students. I know when I was in the classroom, you would get an email from the secretary, such and such students going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks. You need to send down enough work. That it just blew my mind. Like I wanted to make sure that I got them, great materials that we were covering, but not overwhelm them. And then was I ever going to get that textbook back, or was I going to see that novel again? Or how do I have them look at a experiment that we're doing in chemistry. So the courseware is such a phenomenal platform for those situations. If you have a substitute teacher and you're going to be out, your kids get sick at 5:30 in the morning, you can push a flex assignment if your students have the technology, whether it's the Chromebooks or your one-to-one, or you have a computer lab that is accessible. You could push the standard or the lesson that you were going to teach that day in class, and the students could work on that. I think we all know a lot of times, myself as a student was pretty squirrely when subs were in the room, and not a lot was accomplished most days. So this is a great resource for that too. So we're really trying to build our capacity now, adding middle schools. They have been wonderful and very patient with me because most of my experience is high school. So we're building trainings for the summer, and we're working with individual schools, individual teams, and that's like our big thing. We want to support you and you're building your classroom how it works for you, because it may not look the same next door or in a different high school or middle school. So as soon as we have those district-wide trainings set with dates, obviously those will be pushed out right away. But if you are looking for maybe more clarity, or would like to talk to us in a smaller setting and do question and answer, we're available for that too. So please keep in mind, if you have any questions, throw those in the chat and Coach Schatzer will answer those. And I just want to go in today and show you the program, just kind of the basics of where you find things and how to look for things. So let me share my screen. When teachers are logging on, teachers and students will log on through Clever. I log on a little bit differently, but a lot of people say, well, how will my students know that I put an assignment here? Well, a great way to do that is Coach Schatzer made a video, and our videos are all linked to the training schedule too. So once you click on that link, you will always have access to any video that we upload. Coach Schatzer made a great video for students, just a how-to. So I've had teachers put that in their Google Classroom, the how-to video. So students know, okay, I'm looking for this platform, this is where my assignments are. Or teachers that are using flex assignments, they'll put the alert in their Google Classroom, to go to Edmentum for their flex assignment for that day or that week. So that's just a great way to use both programs. I had a question today if they were linked, and the answer is no. You have to think of it like a study island, or Google Classroom is Google. That's Google based, but you can still incorporate them. I had a couple of teachers that were using this for foundational standard skills, and then on Fridays they were doing like virtual museum tours. So it's up to you how much or how little you want to use it, and knowing your students, how can you incorporate it. Okay, so when you log on to Edmentum, you would go through Clever, just like you do for anything for JCPS, and then you'll have a black E with a rainbow through it. And this is the landing page here. The Help Center over here is always very useful. Whichever page you're on, the topics change. So it really narrows down the topics for where you're at within the program. So this landing page really just doesn't have a lot. It just tells you how to create announcements and how to score. So right now, this is like a training classroom that I'm in, because I don't ever like to show like our students information. So if I had a bunch of students working, I would have all the alerts right here on this page. You can choose to go through this page to look at those alerts, but I find that most people just go straight into courseware or flex assignments. But I just wanted to show you that this purple help button is a great resource for you. So when you come up here and you go to courseware, your school would be listed. So again, mine's just a training school. And you'll come to this page now. This is where all your information is. So your courses, if you created classrooms, your students, and then the tasks that they're working on. From this page, you can create new sections, and you can look at all of your classes. So we just have a bunch of them in here for just to play around and practice. So let's say I want to look at my 6th grade language arts class. You can come over here, you can do quick reports right here. You can open the grade book, view the curriculum, and go to the section settings. People ask a lot, well, I don't want to mess it up, or I don't want to make a mistake. The great thing is in this program, you can always go back. So let's say you made an end date and you're like, oh, I have a couple more students that really need more time. You can always go into the section settings and change that right here. Another great feature, when you create a section, and even once it's created, you can add additional teachers. So if you have a collaborating teacher working with you, or you're using this maybe for ESS, extended school year, Saturday school, summer school, you can add multiple instructors to, just keep an eye and keep pace with that student. So that's a feature that, with my background being in special ed, I really appreciated. And then you can do different things, if you want to set a description or anything that your instructors would see, or your students. You can also deactivate the section from here. So I didn't make any changes, so we're just going to cancel that. So those section settings are right here. You could also get to those options when you go directly into the course. So again, I have my grade book, my curriculum. Here you can send a message, add students, and also change the section settings like I just showed you. The send message feature is great. So if I want to send a message here, it's going to go to every single student in that period. So 6th grade language arts, 1st grading period. Every kid that is enrolled in that class will get this message. You can also look at your students and send an individual message. So if I see here, student 4 is not working at all, I want to send them a message, I can click on their name. If they were making any progress, it would all be listed. This is almost looking at like an individual report card, but I can send a message to just this student, and it's called a quick message. They will not get this through their JCPS email. That's the only downfall. It would only go through, when they log on to Admentum, they would see the alert. So you can see I have a little alert up here. So I have a message waiting for me. So that's kind of just a basic rundown of what you can do and play around with the program. So I want to go back and show you, what does the curriculum look like? So once I create a course, and I can do this before I create a course, but we look at the curriculum, and here's where you can make changes and adapt the program to fit your needs and your students' needs. They have options here that are great. You can lock, hide, or omit any of the discussion questions, teacher graded materials, mastery tests. You cannot omit, but you can lock or hide them. Your pre-test, post-test, and then end of semester test. So typically when we're talking credit recovery, a lot of time we omit the discussion questions or teacher graded. People do have a preconceived notion that programs like this are easy, and I cannot stress enough that they truly are not. So sometimes it's just not appropriate if it's a credit recovery situation for those discussion questions to be in there. However, if I was using this in my classroom, especially during NTI, I might want to keep some of those discussion questions in there because it's a great platform to get the kids collaborating. So when a student opens up a discussion question, they can put the answer, and then they see the answers of all of their peers that are in that section. So you could have 5 different sections for 5 different class periods, and each class period would be unique to see what's going on in those discussions. As a teacher, you can go into the discussion and answer them, or maybe say, I need you to add more to this. So that's kind of a cool feature that I think I would have really liked if I had a classroom for NTI. Same thing with teacher graded. Some of the activities are really great, but you do have that choice to lock or hide. I think, for some people, they like to go in and lock the units below where they're working because they don't want the students to jump around and go ahead. So that's another great feature that then you just have to be mindful of going in and unlocking when it's necessary. the mastery tests, if you look right here, it says edit and it says limit attempts to unlock mastery test. So anytime you create a new new courseware class, it will be just automatically set to unlimited. That's just the default for Edmentum. After talking and working throughout the school year with the people who work for Edmentum and many different teachers, people seem to come to consensus that 2 to 3 attempts is appropriate for a mastery test. So what that means is if your student goes through a tutorial and they take a mastery test and they don't pass it, they will have additional attempts to try it out. I think having 3 chances, if they're still failing and going through that tutorial, that's a great alert for me as a teacher to know I need to reach out to this student. I may need to pull a small group or one-on-one lesson with this student through Google Meet. Or you may see you have a handful of students that just were not understanding that tutorial. So that's a great way to catch that quickly in real time and pull them aside and do a different lesson, or just try what do you need, what's going on with that student or that lesson. So that's just a great feature that's in all of the courses throughout the program. The academic success is a really cool one. Kentucky history. So it really just depends on what course you're teaching. Another great feature when you come into the course and let's say you look at the curriculum, you can see everything that your students would be doing. I love the syllabus that's offered, and it's just kind of a great guide. So it gives you a course overview. You can also look at all of these prior to setting a section. So that's a cool feature too. It gives you the goals and the general skills. And then when you come down, it will tell you specifically what is in that course. Everybody asks us, how long will it take a student to get through the course? And I almost wish they didn't even have this column here. If you're using this for initial credit or credit recovery, it's really based on student motivation. It's very hard to pinpoint how many days or hours or minutes a student would need to work to get through it. But this is more of a guide. If you were using this in your classroom, maybe as a foundation, you could spend a day here and then maybe the next day you would do something, or like a flipped classroom. I worked with a teacher who did the flipped classroom and it was so cool. So this would be a good guide for that if you were using that model. So this just goes through and it tells you what type it is, if it's the orientation, a lesson, an activity. So this will help you to see, do I want this unit activity or discussion talking about fiction? Maybe you don't. So that would be something that you would omit. The students also have access to this, which I think for me as a student, I know I always like to see what was ahead and what we would be working on. Then if you omit, lock, or hide anything, that status will always show up right here. And one of my favorite features with my background that the program has that I've never seen in a program is all of the resources available to our students. So when we click into a tutorial or anything that our students are going to see and work through, over here on the blue bar, we have additional resources. So it will show them the table of contents if they want to jump around. These are the resources. The guided notes are so valuable and I push it a lot. I know, especially for our ECE students, that this is a great skill to practice and it will support them in, getting the information. So I prefer when using guided notes to have them printed for students so that they can, write it down. Right now, that may be something that we can't do. If they have a printer at home, they could print it, or they can download it and type right within the guided notes. So for some kids that may be useful, others that may be difficult. So we just have to kind of think outside the box. Not every course has guided notes, but a majority of the core courses do. So your ELA, math, science, and social studies. So I just really, this is really one of my favorite features of the program because I always taught my students how to take good notes and the different ways that you can take notes. So this aligns with the tutorials. So you also have these additional materials in here. So the Klondike Gold Rush is mentioned in the tutorial. So if I'm teaching this in the classroom or through NTI, I might take this text and add it to my Google Classroom and do an extension off of here. So I like that, that's where it really is beyond credit recovery. There's so many more options than just, throwing them on and having them, rip through a course. They give you additional materials. Not every course, but a lot of the courses, especially our core courses, will have additional resources, and these will update based on the unit that you're in. So great feature over here. We have a video that shows students how to access this and remind them. So that's a great one to link to your classroom. They also have a dictionary here. And then the reading tools. If you have a student on their IEP says they get a reader, they can have a reader. They slide this on and it will read each page to them. You can also do click to speak, where maybe they don't want to hear the whole thing read. So they're only going to click a sentence, or once they've read it, maybe they were a little bit confused, they can go back and click a sentence. So we need to encourage our students with or without an IEP to utilize this, because I think with NTI this has been a struggle. So this might encourage some kids to think, okay, I can relax a little bit, maybe do the guided notes and listen to the program read it to me. And then it also has a translation feature in 17 different languages. So they would copy and paste material from a tutorial, and it would, once they copy and paste it, this is a video one, so it would go in there and they can translate. And then just another tool is the highlighter tool. Some students, I know I had some students in New York that had that listed as an accommodation, that they needed to have access to be able to, highlight and take, notes. If this was a math or a science course, you would also have a calculator here, which is a great feature for, it's just everything's right there. I think it makes it very easy for our students to access. So it's really fun to kind of go through and see all of the different things in each course. Let me see here. So let's see, I want to show you quickly where you can find this if you haven't built a course yet and you just want to kind of explore. When you go to the menu button here up on the top left corner, you would have access again to everything that's on that main page. And then here you have your course catalog. You can search for any of the courses and check them all out prior to adding them to your class for a course. And then I'm like running out of time today. The reports are a phenomenal feature. I love the reports, and we're going to create more videos for you all to show you how useful they are. You can, on this tab, create reports that you want to set up. So maybe your principal wants to see a progress report. They want to know how many times the students are on. So maybe on Fridays, you're going to create that report to push to you. So this report would generate and send you, based on individual students, their progress. So the reporting features in Edmentum are second to none. I've never seen a program that has this detailed of reports. Maybe you want to do a grade book report card once a week and transfer grades into Infinite Campus. There's a lot of options. Another awesome feature, so once you jump out of those reports that you can set up, are the classic reports. This is where makes my heart flutter. The strengths and needs by class report is phenomenal. If you have your students, maybe you gave an assignment, a tutorial, and a mastery test, and you want to assess, who really got it. You want to see it. You don't want to just look at it through the grade book or that lens. Sometimes it's really hard. Or if you're using small group or blended learning, many new teachers struggle with well, how do I group my students? How do I know who to put in which group? This report will group the kids based on the activity that you choose. So I love this report. It's a great report for our ECE teachers, our ELLs. It's a really good one. The other reports in here, I mean, I could play around all day and just check them all out, because the learner daily usage report, you can tell how long a student's been logged on, and you can also tell how long they were active. Nothing's better than when you get that email from a parent or a student saying, well, I can't get on the program. I had this 2 days ago with a high school student, kept telling her teacher she couldn't get on the program, and the mom was upset. and she was on the program like as we were looking into it. She was saying that she had an error report, and she didn't have an error report. She was in the program, and it timestamps it. So that's a great for, if you have students that are, not willing to work, or they're telling their parents they're working. You can show them, yes, they were logged in, but they weren't actively working. So there's a lot of really unique reports in here that different teachers can use for different reasons. And then finally, just real quick, my time is running out here. The flex assignments are another great option where you can create flex classes. For example, the Algebra 2 didn't really align with the curriculum, our standards. So we had Algebra 2 teachers for NTI create flex classes, and they pulled from the Algebra 2 A and then Algebra 2B, and they created weekly assignments for their students, and they seem to be pretty happy with that and having a lot of success. So I am on again next week. So I think what I'll do for next week is just focus on flex assignments, because today I really talked a lot about courseware and how that benefits you, and how you can navigate through there. And then keep in mind, we have lots of videos linked through the slide deck that's linked on the schedule. And then the digital learning channel is so awesome because they edit our videos and they throw them up there. So we do have videos on flex assignments too. So throw the questions in there, let me know what you need, and keep working. I feel like we work in like the best district ever, and I feel like I can say that because I've taught in 5 states.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you, Summer. We appreciate you, and you're a rock star. And it is 11:30, so we have next the wonderful Alan Young and Justin Elliott for performance assessment and micro credentials. Hello, gentlemen. How are you today?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Did you guys edit those videos? Because could you Photoshop me a little bit or something?
Why would you say such a thing? You are wonderful, and you do not need any Photoshop whatsoever. So we just cut out some of the content, and then also cut out any type of short thing that says like screen share, just the long pauses and those type of things.
Yeah, but Justin could use a beard trim, and I could use a haircut.
Well, it's anyway. Coming. What, May 25th? May 25th. You guys make those appointments. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Very good. All right, I'll start share my screen here. And okay, how does that look?
You got those captions going, Justin?
Not yet. Let me. Okay, how about that? All right, well, nice to be back on the Digital Learning Channel.
And today we're going to talk about performance assessments and micro-credentials. And there are many, many micro-credentials. And the ones we'll focus on today are ones that certify teachers in designing performance assessment. These words sound very technical, but after we talk a little bit about them, I hope that they are really shown to be simple and common things that we're doing pretty regularly already. On the left, a description of performance assessment. A performance assessment is the kind of assessment in which students will create evidence or demonstration to show that they understand the skill or concept being assessed. If you, as a teacher, are planning work that results in backpack evidence, this is a type of performance assessment that students won't be showing their understanding on a multiple choice test or on a worksheet, but rather through the demonstration, creation, or production of some evidence. An example of this is an on-demand writing task. When we have kids write on demand, we get to see their ability to perform their skill in that way.
Yeah, and really these performance assessments are a better way, I think, of showing at least most standards with regard to the verbs and the things that are really being required of the standards. A lot of times multiple choice questions only kind of talk about the topic or facts or something of the content of a standard, but they don't ask you to demonstrate the verbs, but a performance assessment can.
It reminds me of the depth of knowledge indicator that Kentucky used for a while some years ago. And there was a depth of knowledge 1. This was sort of recall. It roughly tracked along Bloom's. When
Right.
they got to depth of knowledge 4, remember they said something like, this is something you can't assess in an assessment, not in a multiple choice or open response. Well, depth of knowledge 4 is the sort of thing you can assess in a performance assessment. It's application, it's real context, real scenario, it's kids really interacting with the world.
And I think we think that people will, if they've been able to show something through that way, more likely retain it and be able to do it later than if they just cram something in at one time I showed it on a multiple choice test.
Yeah. Yeah. We all remember the multiple choice tests that we passed and then remembered very little of what that was about. The next thing we'll talk about, the next part of this presentation, is about micro-credentials. So micro-credentials are badges. They're small credentialed skills that teachers prove that they have, submit evidence for, and then gain credentials or badges to show that they have those particular skills. A good example of this is the Google for Education badges, the Apple Educator badges. Even National Board Certified credential is a form of large scale credential. When you pass your national boards, you have submitted evidence for many, many, many different skills and pieces of teaching repertoire. Micro-credential is a fraction of a national board, is like a fraction of a national board certification. It takes 1 or 2 discrete skills and certifies a teacher in those after the teacher showing evidence.
But that's a good point, though, that you bring up with that comparison, because these are not like an instead of. People can start to accumulate micro-credentials and it be the same evidence that they'll use toward their national boards.
That's right. Micro-credentials are sort of a way of building up a larger certification or credential if that's what you want to do with it. So our presentation is really about 2 separate things: performance assessments, the things that happen in our classrooms that allow kids to demonstrate learning, and micro-credentials, a digital form of certifying and badging teachers for skills. We're going to look specifically at micro-credentials that certify teachers in the design of the performance assessment. So when we talk about performance assessment, we're often talking about a learning experience that meets these kinds of elements of quality, that it aligns to 21st century learning targets, it's open-ended, it is fair and culturally responsive, it requires a product or solution or some original work or performance. Also, the design of one goes through a cyclical process from designing, validating, that is talking about it with peers in PLC, making sure that the performance assessment measures what it says to measure, editing, testing with students, grading student work, and calibrating that grading, revision, and then starting again and running the performance assessment again. So that should sound like a little bit about what we're doing in PLC. When PLCs design performance assessments together, their community of the professional learning community improves, as well as the assessment you're giving kids.
That's another great point that you bring up, that really this kind of almost action research way of doing something on your own can be done together, and it forms a great way for a PLC to focus.
Mm-hmm. Alan, do you want to say something about validity and reliability?
Well,
I think it's fun to think about that in multiple choice.
You already did. We hear about, whenever you talk about assessment or testing or measurement, you always hear about validity and reliability, but you always do mostly in a, quote, psychometric way. Really, validity is, are we measuring what we are intending to measure? And if you have something that's somewhat complex, it's hard to measure it just with an ABCD 4-foil way of doing it, especially if you're asking someone to show or demonstrate that they have a certain capacity or skill or a certain depth of knowledge. Reliability is, can you show it in different ways over different kinds of contexts, or when you can actually replicate it so you can pretty much know that that assessment really will show it. And then finally, the notion of sufficiency, I think, is really an important one, because I think all of this can seem, when you're actually cultivating evidence, like it can be overwhelming. But for micro credentials, the point is, can you show just enough? You don't have to take every drop of my blood to be able to say if my blood is good or not. You can just take a sample. And that's all these are about. Can you provide evidence samples to demonstrate you have a particular skill or competency?
Cool. We are getting a whole lot better at explaining this after the third time.
Yes, this is our performance assessment.
That's right. Often in Jefferson County, teachers are familiar with this sort of template to do some rough planning of learning experiences. And a high quality performance assessment can be planned in this way. In the skills and standards, we're thinking of aligning learning targets to 21st century skills, including, of course, our 5 success skills and our core content described disciplinary targets. We also include a question or a problem because we want the work to be open-ended and relevant to the real world for students. And to the extent to which we can have learners or students initiate that questioning, they ask the questions, they initiate the work, they see the problem, the work becomes that much more authentic and engaging.
I
At
really
the end,
love that form, Justin. I just wanted to say how this simple form can put both the skill, the standard, and learner agency stuff all together. And that's really the driving part. I love that.
yeah, it gives space for everything. What
What's on your screen now, Justin?
Well, I got a phone call from my mother. That means that my computer intercepted it from my phone. And here we go. All right.
This is the challenge, to see if we can do it.
And it whipped me off of the screen. That's right.
I think Elaine called your mother and see how we'd handle this in real time.
It happened to me yesterday, and I was thinking, what? I didn't know what to do. So yes, it like had a 3-finger swipe on a Mac. So you're good. You got it.
All right, you can get back into it. I believe in you, Justin.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in trouble because I didn't pick up the phone, but we'll see. So when we create when we define success criteria with students, when we create rubrics with them about the work, it helps clarify the work. You've got some teacher clarity, you've got some backward planning, you've got all these pieces coming together in a way that makes meaningful learning for kids. And then finally,
you'll have to reshare your screen, Justin, because it kicked off the screen.
Oh, okay.
If you don't do that, only our oral learners will really be learning during this time. Our visual learners will be totally lost.
Ha. That is a real teacher, total teacher dork joke there. That's good. Okay. And then in the middle, we want to, and this doesn't, these two descriptors don't stick in the middle specifically, but overall, we want the experience to be fair and culturally responsive, as well as require application and transfer of learning.
Yeah.
We want to see kids using skills in new contexts, applying their understanding in new context to get an idea of how well they do in the authentic scenario. Okay, that's just performance assessment. That kind of thing happens in your classroom. Should be happening regularly. Kids should be making evidence of their learning. Let's talk a bit about the technology of micro-credentials. So there's a website. There are more than one of these clearinghouse websites, but we're going to look specifically at Digital Promise. This website contains many different micro-credentials that are created by, supported by, evaluated by, sustained and monitored by different organizations. Some of them colleges and universities of teaching, some of them non-for-profits around improving teaching and learning. And the ones we'll look at today are from the Center for Collaborative Education out of New England somewhere.
Yeah,
and
in Boston.
Boston, and they have created several micro-credentials around performance assessment. They organize them in stacks, groups of 3, in which those 3 skills are related. So the basic stack for performance assessment is what you're looking at here. It's blue, performance assessment design, performance assessment validation, that is meeting with your PLC, sharing the performance assessment before you execute in the classroom, and getting feedback to alter and tweak and tune, and then a rubric element too, so that your performance assessment contains both some tuning from friends and a rubric to make the evidence and product clear for students. They have other stacks here. Let's zoom in really specifically to one micro-credential so you can see what it looks like on the inside. It describes the task that you will complete. It gives you resources, as in templates, planning forms, some background reading, often research that the micro-credential and the teaching skill itself is based on. And there are 3 parts to your submission. Once you have gotten the forms you need, you have gone into your classroom, you've planned the performance assessment, you've worked with your peers, the students have done the work, you have documented different phases of the work, including gathering student work as evidence. You come back and you discuss some ideas that relate to your performance assessment, its authenticity, that sort of thing. You upload your evidence, describes the evidence needed, and you write a bit about a reflection. How was the process for you? What was it like? Once you've done that, you submit your evidence and reflections. It goes to some sort of digital panel of judges. They're all triple checked, and if you pass the credential, then you'll receive that as a digital badge. The stacks on the performance assessment, the stacks on performance assessment are basic performance assessment design and advanced performance assessment design. Building a performance assessment community, this stack may be more interesting to AICs or school-based teaching
teachers or coaches.
And finally, one about equity. We know one of the reasons that we are really excited about success skills, backpack evidence, and performance assessments in general is that we see the opportunity to give kids from all backgrounds and all academic levels the ability to demonstrate their understanding, their skills, or dispositions in a new and more equitable way than was possible before.
Yeah, so while we have a lot of different micro-credentials, and you might show that list if you click on it about how many different kinds of micro-credentials you can get, the main thing is that we chose performance assessment to first run with in this district because we knew it would be key to all of our deeper learning push. And
that's right.
So that's why we did it. But there are many great kinds of micro-credentials on all different kinds of skills that teachers would want to be able to show or demonstrate. And the good news about micro-credentials is that they are not a course that you have to sit through necessarily, and then you just get tested on that course. These micro-credentials already can presume that you have some competency. And the question is, when you check yourself against their stuff, the stuff in the micro-credential, you can kind of see where you have the stuff and where you might need a little refresher or something to go a little deeper on. And so the thing that's nice is that if you've reached a certain level, and I think you could see when Justin opened up that micro-credential, that these are not just a badge, but they represent that you actually have the component parts of a certain skill, that's an important part of the teaching repertoire. And by being able to show that, that means you have kind of a status or stature that people can trust it, because these vetted micro-credentials are ones that really you don't just find anything on here. They've been quite vetted very thoroughly by Digital Promise.
Yeah. There are many, many micro-credentials in this particular clearinghouse. Some of them are simple, formative assessments, learner engagement, improving classroom culture. Some of them are or general, I should say. Some are very specific and tailored to, here's accommodations, and some require a fee. Currently, if you earn a JCPS approved micro-credential, we will reimburse you for the fee of applying. Many of the micro-credentials, though, are free and would have no fee associated. Also, if you earn one of the approved JCPS micro-credentials, you will earn PD credit for that as well. Okay. For these particular micro-credentials, all micro-credentials are flexible and personalizable in the sense that they expect the teacher to do the work in their classroom, in their context with their kids. And so the evidence you submit will be very much dependent on your job, your setting, and the work that you're doing with students. In this case, you see one way that a teacher earned these 3 micro-credentials in their classroom. The first performance assessment the students went through, by the end of it, they were uploading backpack evidence. And throughout the performance assessment, the teacher was collecting her own evidence that would later be uploaded to the earning of the basic performance assessment design micro-credential. By the time the students had uploaded their first backpack evidence, the teacher now has uploaded and earned her first micro-credential. She begins a second performance assessment with them, at the end of which they will upload more backpack evidence, and she will focus specifically on gathering the evidence around the rubric she designs and around the conversation she has in her PLC to tune her performance assessment before students get it. So through 2 classroom projects, she has earned 3 micro-credentials. A more ambitious person might do them all at once, and this is just to show the flexibility and the different ways you might approach it. This teacher has just designed 1 performance assessment, but through it, she's careful to design the rubric the way that will evidence her ability for the micro-credential, to validate it with peers in the same way, and then to collect the evidence of the basic performance assessment itself. So at the end, she's prepared to upload evidence to earn all 3 micro-credentials after 1 in-class project or performance assessment.
That brings up a point, Justin, about how these in a way are kind of like modules, and that if you could do them each separately, but if you know that somebody's put these together and they think, and they are the ones who created it, there's a connection between them, you might want to look at like all the ones in the stack, and a stack is 3 in this case. It could be 2, it could be 7. There's different kinds of stacks, but the point is to look at it, because if you do that, you might find I can do something well that will work for multiple different micro-credentials. You don't have to create new evidence always in the next micro-credential just because you used it in another one. Remember, this is about demonstrating simply, do you have the capacity? Not saying each one of these is a separate amount of work. Some of the work could have some continuity between it.
That's exactly right. You can earn through one performance assessment in your class, you might end up earning several different micro-credentials. It's also good to reiterate your point about flexibility, or you used a different word there, regarding the stacks. They don't need to be earned all three at once. You can earn one from one stack, one from another, one from a third, but they're set up so that these skills are interrelated, and they sort of help, each stack will help you earn the other ones in the stack.
And I suppose you could even make an argument that you could do things from different stacks if you were putting out your learning journey.
That's right. That's right. Personalized pathway there. This is just a document that a template you'll get as you fill out these, as you plan for these micro credentials. It's simply a 3-column template. It should look very familiar to anyone familiar with this. Same 3 columns, same backward planning. And you'll also receive a more specific version of this planning template. So the language here will look familiar to anyone who's familiar with project-based learning or other performance assessment templates, Wiggins McTighe work, things like that. And it's just simply the specific format they're going to want the information in.
What I like about the form, while on the one hand, I like the other forms better in a way, but this form at least shows you're not going to go on ad infinitum about addressing something. These are not, this is that sufficiency notion.
Mm-hmm.
They just need enough information from you and reflection so that they can see that the evidence that you've supplied, they want to know what you intended it for, and they'll want to see in your reflection something about it, because just submitting a piece of evidence doesn't make it obvious what it's for. And that's where you get the chance to control how the reviewer will see your evidence by how you describe it and respond to these kinds of categories and questions.
That's right. You getting the chance to choose the evidence on which you will be judged brings up a really cool parallel that's happening between micro-credentials and our own backpack of success skills under the bigger umbrella of performance assessment. The backpack of success skills is a performance assessment, a time when kids can perform or demonstrate their abilities that they have using the actual evidence to prove their skill. A micro-credential functions the same way for teachers.
It's a performance assessment too.
It sure is. And so altogether, we felt like this was a pretty uncanny connection and one that shouldn't be passed up. So that's why we've been working with CCE on these micro-credentials. The bottom line is we want authentic demonstrations of learning for all learners, teachers as learners, students as learners, everyone. As we get better at doing the work of academic disciplines and doing the work of improving the world, we all want the chance to show our skills in an authentic way. The other compelling thing about this is the time element, that we used to, or using a seat time model, you could be sitting in PD for hours and then go home and spend hours planning work for students that results in backpack artifacts. Or you could combine the things a little more, plan in PLCs for performance assessment. Students can do performance assessment in your class. They'll upload backpack evidence while you upload evidence and earn micro-credentials, thus earning your PD hours. So there's a certain...
In many respects, there's often a common complaint that, this PD, I'm doing it just to get my credit hours, and it doesn't really match with what I'm doing, or does it utilize what I'm doing? Well, this is exactly the opposite, in that it allows for you to take the very things that you do in your class, and simply intentionally and with reflection, try to put it in a way that it can demonstrate a competency that you have so that you can get recognized for it. And we're working on how we can recognize and value these more in JCPS. It's a little bit of a complicated thing because whenever you get in the land of PD credit, you're also talking about state credit and licensure and all those things. So we have to work on those levels, but we are working on the local level and with JCTA to try to find a way to be able to more to elevate how micro-credentials can be a good way to demonstrate competency that should be able to be used in getting you that different job that you might want, that teacher leader growth or something that you want, or whether that is worth actually some kind of dollars and cents or something.
That's right. Yeah, we see a lot of potential in this. Finally, to wrap up, we have a couple links if you're interested to go dig around a little bit to the Digital Promise site itself, as well as to NEA's Bank of Microcredentials, articles around performance assessment not related to microcredentials, and resources, banks of performance assessments to search through as you're thinking of ways for kids to demonstrate their learning in an authentic, backpack-related way. So maybe some of this NTI time could be used just to look around here and see what is out there in the world of micro-credentials.
And there's no doubt that some of the things you've had to do in NTI or during NTI may also be things you would be able to show as evidence to do it. So it's certainly whatever you can create or produce that demonstrate a competency that is needed in the micro-credential could certainly be something you could look into.
Elaine, thank you for the time.
You are very welcome. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate you. And lots of spots in the chat that say great opportunities here. And you guys, your team, the Deeper Learning team, always provides great learning opportunities for teachers. So thank you again. And it is high noon, so I hope you gentlemen have a good lunch. And we are going to be back here. We're going to take a short break till 12:30, and then right after that you're going to have Making Literacy Relevant and Collaborative with Jenny Aberly, Emily Sales, and Rosie Bertles. And as you sign off here, click that subscribe button for us so that you can get that notification of when they go live again at 12:30, and then also in the corresponding the next week. So till further notice, we'll see you at 12:30, and enjoy your lunch. Bye guys.